Oh,
We're not there yet. Hello, guys. Can you hear us?
hello and welcome.
Just mention the chat. There we go. I can see us now. We're live on YouTube.
Fabulous. So we wanted to welcome everyone. Thank you so much for signing up and taking your time on a Friday, which is essential. During this time of white fragility that we have come together to build unity and solidarity and just give an understanding and different perspectives of the world in itself. And the panelists for today that are here are three of us, and we will explain after we all introduce ourselves. For those of you who don't know, my name is Future. I am Future Kane. I'm a mom. I am a certified yoga instructor, and then I also have been in education for 20 years. So my heart and my passion is there with kids who are K through 12th grade, but I have two littles. So my heart is 0 to 100 or however long you live for. Thank you for joining us.
Hey guys, some of you may know me, some of you may not, but I'm happy to have all of you here with us. And I echo Future's thanks for being with us on a Friday. So I'm Aisha. I was previously an executive assistant, and I supported multiple C-level individuals, including founders and CEOs. And so most of my career, I've partnered with them in helping them to grow their business and drive key deliverables. Right now, I am very much focused on what I would call, corporate activism and making sure that Black and Brown people have their voices heard in the workplace, and also that organizations are building anti-racist structures and policies, and moving away from the white supremacist structures that have been in place for so long. So that's what drives me, is for Black and Brown people to be able to come into a space where they feel valued, where they feel heard, and where they are accepted fully. And you'll hopefully hear more about my experience in the, coming up in the next hour or so in this webinar.
Hello, I'm Marvin Kennedy-MacFoy. I wasn't supposed to be here at all. I'm the kind of what I say, the technician. I'm the person normally who's, I guess, behind the scenes. That's what I do. Did all the marketing. I do all the visuals and stuff. And basically, I'm also an activist. But I think a lot of you have seen that, I'm an ultra feminist, and really kind of my job in this whole thing, and moving on with future webinars is just to elevate, use my platform to elevate the voices of Black women, because I think they're the ones we need to be listening to. And I think for sure, if any of us look online and look at who is doing the work, it is literally just Black women. So I mean, from Cori Bush's current victory to AOC, whether it's in politics, whether it's here on LinkedIn, I think it's really the voices of Black women that have to be elevated. And so normally I'm in the back, behind the scenes, but because we Future will explain what happened to our two other panelists, and you guys will understand that there's some serious prices to pay when you choose to do what we're doing. So I'll pass it on to Future. So Marvin Kennedy-MacFoy, and I'll fill in as many blanks as I can. Future? You're on mute. You muted yourself.
In order to honor the privacy of everybody, we could give you a tidbit that I'm hoping everybody will be able to read between the lines. John can't be here because of work engagements that he said he needed to be at. So things in his life got switched at the last minute. And because obviously he has a job and that's his first reality and priority, he had to unfortunately bow out at the last minute. Chandra was also supposed to be here. Welcome to either of the people who are linked to either of those. And what I and we will say about Chandra is you have to sit and think. And if you want to say, I'm truly an activist, the question is are you an activist who bows out and taps out and wants to scream and run the other way when things get difficult? Or are you an activist who is truly in it and are willing to sacrifice whatever it takes in order to amplify the voices and amplify the inequities and amplify the challenges that others as ourselves have to bear on a continuous basis. And because of the amplification and searching and revealing the realities of many, she unfortunately is not here today. And when Chandra is able to give you more of a information, she will be able to do that, but to keep her privacy to herself. We are going to hope people can read between the lines of white fragility and censorship is at work.
Voila. So there you go. How are we gonna run this? So basically, like, when I say we're just gonna kind of like go around with the panel and just give you kind of like a little idea of kind of like, you know, what got us started on this activism. You know, what triggered us to become so, when I say outspoken here on LinkedIn. I will quickly just start with myself, then pass on to Fuchsia, then pass on to Aisha. Mm-hmm. So for myself, it was literally George Floyd's death. I'd spent, I think like a lot of us, I spent a lot of time, like, you know, watching the news of COVID and everything, and I had enough, and I took a break for like about 2 days. So on the 25th, on the day when it actually took place, I had no clue. But on the 27th, which is my birthday, and that's the day I turned 46, I woke up in the morning, and the first video that I saw was George Floyd dying, basically. And I sat in front of my screen and I just cried. I just cried my eyes out. I could not believe that I was seeing murder like on TV. And it really shook me. It shook me to my core. And it just triggered me. It triggered me to want to do something, to want to create some kind of change, to do something. And, you know, and that's pretty much what kicked me off, and I haven't looked back since. So that's kind of me.
I'd say my story is a little longer, Mervyn. My story began with, I mean, obviously I could go back to Rodney King, right? But I'm not going to do that. So it essentially began before even Rodney King. But I think what triggered me was Arbery. And at the time when Arbery was literally hunted down in the middle of daylight by men and shot and killed for doing nothing when he was just doing something very normal, which is running. And for me, I do that too. I go for runs because it's therapeutic and because I want to stay healthy. And that was a trigger for me. And then you watched others, Breonna, Nina, and then, you know, we get to George Floyd. And knowing the struggles that my mom personally has been through, because I'm very open and honest about, I sit here as a biracial woman, and my mom's Italian and my dad was African-American. And my mom literally 43 years ago fought the same battle that we're fighting today. And when George Floyd happened, I said, I can't sit here anymore and just allow all of the stuff that I've seen to happen to myself, to my mom, to my children, continue to happen without saying, I need to speak up. I can't sit here, whether it's uncomfortable or not, and I'm going to stand on my values and I'm going to stand on my convictions, and whatever that comes with, just as some other people have done now, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing literally to put my life on the line, because at this point, I can't bear the masks that I have to continue to wear on a daily basis and not being able to breathe, all because I can't live in this society and be the true authentic self that I want to be. So that's what riveted and jolted me into saying enough is enough, and I will be very vocal in helping to educate people.
So my journey, it's really kind of a quick and simple one. I worked in corporate America for so many years. Even as an undergrad, I've held multiple internships. And so I've gotten to see how organizations and businesses operate, and how specifically people of color are treated differently. And just, I came to a awakening, maybe like as I got older, that I have been complicit in this system, that I have allowed white fragility to silence my voice. I have just, you know, had these anti-Black I guess, ideas about my people and just about how, like, and it would affect how I moved in the workplace. And it was that one particular job, and unfortunately, I can't mention which one, but maybe in the future I will in my book. Look out for it. I said enough is enough. Like, I'm showing up to work Black, and there's a difference between showing up to work whitewashed as a Black person and showing up to work fully, like, in your, you know, in your own glory and loving who you are. And I said, I'm showing up to work as that, and I'm going to speak out about things that I find uncomfortable, or that is, you know, absolutely just unacceptable in this day and age. And so it was at that moment that I said, there's no turning back. There's no turning back. Like, this is how, I don't know, this is essentially how I'm going to operate in spaces moving forward, right? I'm no longer going to let people get away with their BS. And so eventually later down the line, you know, COVID happened and then BLM happened. And it was just like, okay, it kind of lit the fire even more to be able to just be outspoken and call things how they were. So it really didn't start during COVID. It didn't start during BLM. It was just, as I got older and the years passed, I just woke up and I was like, wait, I'm a grown woman. Like, and you're not going to say this to me, and you're not going to do this, and you're not going to treat me this way, right? Just because I'm Black. And that's kind of really what picked it for me. Yeah.
Cool. So basically, what we're going to do is just basically some run through what Robin DiAngelo's definition of white fragility is. So I'm just going to quickly just share the screen. Stop sharing and share the other screen, so you guys can read it for yourselves. Share application window, and here we go, and share. So that will take a while to come through on YouTube. I can see it on my other screen. It hasn't come up yet. It's come up for me. There we go. So, showing white fragility, a state in which even a minimum amount of racial stress becomes intolerable for white people, triggering a range of defensive moves. These moves include the outward display of emotions such as anger, fear, and guilt, and behaviors such as argumentation, silence, and leaving the stress-inducing situation. These behaviors, in turn, function to reiterate white racial equilibrium. So, I mean, that's pretty much white fragility, and it's what I say. It's interesting in the sense that I've been wrestling with the term white fragility. I don't know if you guys have, but I certainly have, and I came up with this thing today where I just thought to myself, it's not so much white fragility as white susceptibility. I don't know how you guys look at it, because I've tried to look at it from many different perspectives, and I think that if you're looking at fragile and kind of saying, then it's almost like victimhood. So I thought of it from a male perspective, how, you know, in my own socialization as a guy growing up, I was triggered. I was susceptible to certain things that, you know, women would say to me because I was socialized in a certain way that, like, you know, it's like, you know, you don't let girls talk to you like, you don't let women talk to you like that. It's like, you're a man. And so, like, you know, so I had a certain susceptibility due to my socialization. It wasn't that I was fragile, but I was susceptible. And I think, and for me, I've kind of shifted the whole thing from fragility to susceptibility, in the sense that, like, I think that when you are a majority, or when you are the majority rule, or the dominant person, you don't want to be challenged. In the same way that, like, you know, we talk about, yes, we want to have flat organizations with CEOs and so on and so forth, but you're never going to go and talk to the CEO the way you're going to talk to, like, your best friend, right? So, like, because, like, you're dealing with egos. So I think it's kind of more, for me, white susceptibility, and people are susceptible to stuff. How do you guys feel, kind of like with the whole kind of like definition around it, and based on your own experiences? I don't know who wants to go first. Who wants to go first?
Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm going to read something because Teresa Robinson, which I follow and I think many of us do follow, she posted something which was coincidental. She posted something today. Did you see it? She posted something today about white fragility. And I thought it was funny because I posted back to her, this is hysterical. You're literally posting about white fragility on the day that we're hosting this webinar on white fragility. So I am going to more or less read what she said, because I think it's important to hear that piece of what she said. You're laughing because you probably know the post, Melvin. Okay. She said, per the usual, Black women had been sounding the alarm about buying into white fragility. It was problematic from the very beginning. White fragility gets white folks off the hook with a gentle way to characterize rage, defensiveness, discomfort, indignation. Then she basically goes even further and says white fragility strengthens the trope of delicate whiteness. White fragility grants, and it's a natural reaction, victim status to whiteness. This misguided term has single-handedly done more harm than good. What you feel is not fragility. Do the work deep down, then you'll be like us and know exactly what it is you're feeling.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. I think it was powerful, and I think it kind of sets it up, right? I guess the question is, when I talk about white fragility, I think every single Black, Indigenous person of color can say, and we have receipts, right? We all have examples, and we'll be presenting those today to you in every facet of our life of where the white fragility came up. But then when we speak about this whole white fragility, and Robin DiAngelo, who is the author, has now gone to best-selling, and I don't even want to know how many millions of dollars she has made because of the civil unrest. But we also have to remember that Robin DiAngelo, I think she is an ally in trying to help people be educated. I truly do. And I personally read the book. And I also think that there's other great authors out there that have written many beautiful, wonderful books that can help you give a perspective on what Black culture, Black history, Black challenges and tribulations in this white culture that we've had to experience, and give you factual evidence why I believe the white fragility written by Robin DiAngelo is good and can give you understanding, if you're white, of what you're experiencing and how it may show up for you. I also think it then leaves out the negation of the history and the horrible white rage that we have experienced at the hands of white people. And I guess I question you, if you are white, to sit and think on, why do we have to classify it as white fragility? And why are you fragile, but yet we don't ever say Black fragility? Because if anybody should be fragile, with the many evidence we could provide you with how we're affected psychologically, emotionally, and health-wise with data, I would say, are the people that need to be fragile and treated that way.
For sure.
So that's my perspective.
Yeah, no, I think you guys summed it up great. I think Teresa did an incredible job of explaining why white fragility in its term is a problem, right? And the first thing, even before you said it, the first thing that came to my mind was it's rage. Underneath it all, it's an unwillingness to deal with the information that's confronted.
Yes.
Because you are angry at the truth. You don't want to hear the truth, right? You're shutting down. And so again, there's nothing kind of fragile about that. It's the opposite of that. It's a stronger kind of like aversion, in a sense, to kind of hearing the lived stories and hearing the things that people of color have been telling you has been happening to them for centuries on end. And so I absolutely agree. The term white fragility in itself is hugely problematic. It needs to go. We need to start addressing and looking at the root. Like you said, like, what is it? What am I feeling? And most of the time it's going to boil down to, again, defensiveness. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling challenged. I'm feeling like maybe talked down to. I'm feeling like there's someone that's in their place that should know their place, and they're trying to talk to me about something when I'm better than them, right? Like who do they think they are? They shouldn't even be addressing me in this manner, right? So it's like this level of superiority. So we can probably call it that way, superiority, right? Like that's, in a sense, that's what the feeling and the sentiment is. It's like, I don't have to answer to you. And that's why I'm feeling half of the things that I'm feeling. Like, I don't need to explain. I don't need to have this conversation. So I'm just going to walk away. Like I'm just either going to be silent. I'm either going to try to shut you down. I'm going to come back to you with all of this kind of false evidence to prove why you're wrong. Because at the end of the day, I feel superior. Like I don't feel fragile. I feel actually very emboldened in what I'm saying, in my position in society, that I'm going to do what it takes to kind of shut out your voice. And so I very much agree with all of you.
Can I add something, Mervyn? Can I add something? Okay, I think it's important that we actually hear what the definitions of fragile are, right? To get an understanding, okay?
Yeah.
Here's the definitions. Adjective, easily broken or damaged. Now, here's what we would say. All white people, I don't want to say all because I never categorize, right? But there's a lot of white people that would say, well, we're not easily broken or damaged. And then the other is flimsy, easily destroyed. A lot of people would argue that you're not easily destroyed. And then the third is not strong.
Let alone flimsy.
Right?
Yeah. Let alone flimsy. Yeah.
Right?
And the third one,
so those are the exact opposite characteristics in which a lot of white people that I've encountered would want to be described as, but yet you're going to own and celebrate, no, but we have white fragility. So I find it confusing because you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, and I think also that when I said that the trap was like what I think Teresa was pointing out, the fact that it's become kind of a go-to, and also it's kind of ironic because it is yet again a white person in a place of authority, in a place of majority, who decided to take it upon herself to create a term for her people. Right? It's and then when you read the article and you go a bit deeper, like there's a whole, what I say, and I'm not going to say there's always, but like, for example, from my perspective, and you both know this, Future and Aisha, all the work that I've done here, I haven't asked a single fee for it, because I'm not somebody who's driven by money. I'm somebody who's driven by purpose, and there's no kind of like big old money thing behind it. Like I'm like, and for me, it's like I put a section. Some of you who I think registered, I put a section. It's like, if you want to do a paid consultancy with Aisha or any members of the panel, get in touch with them. And let us know what your project is, and they'll get back to you. And they have access to the form. They can see who would be interested, and so the actual work can get done. Because I know that the work that you guys are doing are inspiring people. And what's really interesting is, like, again, like I said, I'll go back to what I was saying. It's like she just took this term, blanket term, and kind of said, "This is what you guys are." And what, like I said, I'm going to give those three definitions. Future, how in the world could a race that's considered fragile, right, colonize Australia, Africa, and America, and kill all those people? It's impossible. Like, there's no way in hell that you guys are fragile, right? And that goes back to the thing that I was saying, like, about susceptibility. So it's a whole kind of thing. Like, I'm like, I don't know if you guys saw the video. I think of there was a black congressman talking about his son, and how that there are people who didn't understand the black experience, and a young white guy saying, because he had like a mixed race child, are you saying we don't care about our children, and so on and so forth? And even though it was a congressman's time, the young white guy, I mean, let's not even go into like the whole like respect your elders thing, used that exact same term, how dare you, right? And that's the exact same term exactly that again was used by the couple who pulled out the gun on the mother and the daughter, right? She also said, how dare you? And it's always this thing, I think, with the whole thing of like this white fragility, but like you said, this white supremacy, in the sense, like, I'm like, you should not be talking to me in that way. You should not be talking to me in that tone. And I'm just like, you're not my mom. Like, you're like, and like, even my mom is like, I'm like, it's like, you don't even know the relationship I have with my mom. It's like, who the hell are you to be talking to me? It's like, that doesn't happen. And I've had a situation here in the UK where I was at the till, and an old white woman, just like, I'm putting my stuff like, on the rack, and she just took it upon herself to just grab my hand and like, and as I looked at her and I was like, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? And like, and let's put it this way, and let's just say for 1 minute, because I'm 46, got 2 daughters. Let's just say for 1 minute, I embodied all the stereotypes of a black male, right? I'm violent, I'm dangerous, right? But even this woman was in her 70s. We're not talking like, and like she just grasped my hand and just like, can you just say move your stuff backwards? I looked at her and said, you must be out of your mind. And like, and that's the whole thing again, like of the white superiority. And then when I cussed her out, when I started to cuss her out, that's when the fragility showed up. You know,
right?
I was like, what? It's like, hey, I'm younger than you, I'm taller than you, I'm bigger than you. You move my hand, but like I cuss you out, and it's like that kind of language.
Right.
You know, you don't talk to me like that. I was like,
right. She didn't expect you to respond. She didn't expect you to speak up as the human that you are with your own autonomy and say, you don't have any power or control over me, right? Like it was totally an expectation of acquiescence and because you dared to, you know, before like there even Jim Crow laws when you couldn't even like, I mean, it was,
but this is the UK.
Don't look me directly in the eye. Don't talk to me directly. You know what I mean? Like you have to cross the street a certain way. It's that kind of expectation in their mind. So when you do push back, again, like you said, that's where the, oh my gosh, how dare you? You know what I mean? It's like the clutching of the pearls. It's, you know, it's very unexpected. And then it leads to, again, not fragility, but rage. It leads to white rage, I feel. And I think that's the appropriate name for it.
Yeah, because literally what happened after that is like, you know, her husband came and he was basically like, yeah, no, her husband came and he was accusing me, and so the whole thing shifted from her, like, you know, physically you know, being in my space to then kind of like, oh, it's this young black man who's like, you know, assaulting and insulting an old white lady. I was like, give me a break. Because I kind of like, and I think that there's this whole thing, what I say, of societal hierarchy, where like kind of like the idea is that kind of like, you know, we place above you, and so therefore there's certain things that we can do to you, but you cannot do to us. And I'm just like, it's like, and I was explaining to Future, I think, and Aisha, it's like the difference. I've always been what I say, I'm going to use the N-word. No, so like, you know, you guys can take it how you want. I've always been the uppity nigger. Like, you know, it's like, that's who I've always been. So for people who are shocked, well, that's like, you know, be shocked, but that's who I've always been. And the reason why my socialization was very, very different from most people is when I was 2 years old, I was sent to Sierra Leone to grow up with to live with my grandparents. And so my first experiences as a human being was as a Mervyn Kennedy-MacFoy. When I was in Sierra Leone, West Africa, there were no white people. So like, you know, so I grew up, they say like the first, because I work in learning and I have my own daughters, and your first formative years are crucial. And so when I became aware of myself between ages 2 to 6.5, I was Mervyn. I was a frisky little kid with my own opinions. I didn't listen to people. I was stubborn, and that's who I was. And that was ingrained in me. So when I came to Europe, I was like, I didn't think anything of white people. I just thought they had strange hair, and that was that. And, you know, and that never left me. So every single company I've ever worked for is like, you know, they kind of like, there's this expectation that I'm going to show up and, you know, acquiesce and just be meek and just, I'm so, God, Massa, thank you so much. You gave me a job. It's like, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I think, and like I said, and like when we push back, we get that white rage. So I think like white fragility, I think, is really kind of like, is a no-go. And I think for our white audience listening, I think what it is like, if there's anything that maybe not, I mean, like not just the only thing, but there are many things you can take away from this. One of the things I think that I would like personally for our white colleagues, your brothers and sisters listening to take away is understanding your own socialization. So in the same way, and a way into that is to think of like, how have I been socialized as a man? How have I been socialized as an able-bodied person? So like, for example, like I'll just give a simple example. I think of these kind of things a lot, and I think like Aisha and Future most certainly do, because they're Black women and they understand intersectionality. But one of the things that I've always thought about is like how ableist the world is, right? So like everything is made for able-bodied people, and then able-bodied people get to define
Yes.
other people who are not able in the same way as them. We call them disabled. Somebody who is blind, right? Their hearing is super able. Like if you had to try and hear like them, you're disabled. So the things like we have to think about how we're socialized and how majorities tend to define minorities or people who are other than, and that's your way in. And so kind of like when you don't consider those people as equal to you, kind of like, you know, if a deaf person was to get a job over you, you'd be like, yeah, but they're deaf. Well, maybe we actually need somebody who is deaf for the job, you know? So it's like, it's think of those kind of loose socializations and think to yourself, oh my gosh. And I think that kind of way in is one way to go in. I'm kind of like done. I don't know if somebody wants to pick up.
Yep. I want to say one more thing about white fragility. Now, I think all of us have read the book, correct? Every single one of us read the book?
Yeah.
Okay. And here's what I will say. I think when I was reading that book, it made sense. I could literally, and I highlighted, right? I highlighted it because it made me sad in a way. Because as I read it, I said, oh my gosh. And then I visualized back to a time in my life where this person said this or this person did that. So it was a way in which I could see and put a context to exactly everything that has been happening. So I don't want to totally discredit Robin DiAngelo, right? And I don't tell white people to go out there and read it, right? But at the same time, if you are truly in it for becoming an anti-racist or for educating yourself more, white fragility can't be your one-stop shop of, oh, I did it. Let me check the box of I'm going to be more ethnic, right? I'm going to be more diverse. I'm going to be more inclusive now because I read this book. That white fragility book is the beginning of your journey, which is a lifelong journey to anti-racism, if that's the game that you're truly in.
Yeah.
White Rage is another one. Ibrahim's How to Be an Anti-Racist is a beautiful book. There's so many beautiful books written by a lot of Black authors that will help give you an understanding of what Black people, not from a white person perspective, but what Black people are actually experiencing.
I mean, and just hold on, let me just prepare it. I just wanted to go to one of the exhibits. So basically, like we have I think it's exhibit C4, just to give you an idea of kind of like, you know, what we're dealing with. But I'll let Aisha just talk while I find that. Just fill in the blanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's Samuel. It's Samuel. If you give the backstory to Samuel, Visitola.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I wrote a post on LinkedIn because I was very tired of white people, particularly white men, challenging me on the things that I was saying, especially on the lived experiences that I was highlighting of Black and brown people. And so I pretty much said in a post that, just to sum it up, do not come to me and ask me to validate my experience. I said, who on God's earth do you think you are? Like, you're not the authenticator of human experience, right? Like, no one has appointed you the person to say if this was valid or not. And so therefore, don't try me because I'll block you. And this guy was so upset that I had the nerve to call out. I had the nerve. Actually, he said I had the balls. That's what his words, I think it was, in one screenshot or something like that, to speak in that manner to people. And I was like, yeah, I mean, apparently I have yours too. I mean, you know, I have enough for all of us. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Like, you're not going to stop me, right? So that just fueled him into this rage. I mean, he called me a bitch. He said that he told the whites that they need to deal with me. I mean, it just was ridiculous how angry and upset he got because I said, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but guess what? You don't, at the end of the day, it has no effect on me. It doesn't matter. Like, go back, go somewhere, go wherever you came from, right? Whatever. Like, go crawl in the hole. I don't care. Really upset, and that really upset him. He also mentioned the fact that he said, oh my gosh, I think there were so many posts that he just wrote about me. And I think in one of them, he particularly highlighted how vocal I was. And that, I think, was the main point of what disgusted him, was that I was unapologetic about what I said. I was not, going to change my mind or soften my language or kind of cater to any way, to him in any way, or to the people that I was calling out. And it just went into this very disgusting, very nasty, racist tirade against me, which included telling me to go back to Guyana, which a place I've never been. So again, it wasn't white fragility, it was white rage. It was this feeling of superiority, of supremacy that says you cannot call out white men like that and challenge them in public, right? Because I'm one of those white men, and I'm now going to put you in your place. And when he saw that didn't work, and it will never work, right? That then he has to go and insult me. And so, well, no, that's not the one. Exhibit C is the one. But this is a really yeah, no, it's okay. That's an interesting one as well, but it was, I think it's C.
So there you go.
Yeah, there we go. So as you'll see here, I'm called a racist slime bag, a diva scum. I mean, these are just so disgusting words. It's just, I have no words. But I literally, I laughed when I saw it, and I want to tell you why I laughed. I laughed because I felt like I'm really making a difference. Like someone came at me this hard with this much filth and this much anger and this much hate about me fighting for equity and inclusion for Black and brown people, and they had to literally attack me in this way. And so I was actually like, kind of in a sense, like, yeah, I made it. Kind of like, didn't make it yet, because I'm not making the big bucks or all that. But I'm like, this is what it feels like to to really make a difference and to get the work done, and people are going to come after you. Like, if no one's ever saying anything in opposition to you fighting for your quote unquote fighting or your quote unquote activism, you're not doing it right. Like, you're absolutely not doing it right, because they're always going to be, no matter how much we don't want them to be, there's always going to be someone or some group of people who is going to oppose equality. Not saying that they're going to get their way, but there's always going to be those couple of people that are not for it and would like to believe and keep the white race in an elevated position above everybody else at the expense of our, again, true freedom and equality. So if you think, that you're doing this work and that you're an ally, and it also speaks to allies too. If you're a quote unquote ally and no one is coming against you, I'm going to need you to question what kind of ally that you are, because even as Future said in the beginning, when she mentioned Chandra, there's a cost. There is a real human cost to speaking up about equity in this world, about white supremacy, about how it has affected Black and brown people. And people that are looking to maintain the status quo, people that are really just focused on making money at the expense of humanity, they're going to try to stop you, And so, I mean, I think it's a badge of honor, to be to be called all these kind of names. It's unfortunate, right? It really is unfortunate. And I'm not saying to kind of welcome it, like, oh yeah, like, come talk bad about me. No, but I think it is a signifier in some sort of way that you are kind of helping to move the needle a bit, and that you are making a difference. And so again, if you are an ally and you haven't come up against any opposition at all, I really would question if you are one.
Okay, I think what's important too is to point out, literally, he calls you a bitch.
Yeah.
In addition to, then he says, deal accordingly. What does that, right? It could be taken as a threat.
Yeah.
But then this man is still allowed his rights on LinkedIn when other people, which happen to be Black or people of color, are getting censored and monitored and deleted.
Yes.
And this is allowed. So this is the systems we're telling you to please sit with and look at them truly through a new lens with evidence that we are providing you of, How does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're on mute, Marvin. You're on mute.
That's it. And the guy's profile is still active. I'm just sending it through.
Right.
And he's still active. He's still there. This guy still has a voice. And so it goes back to the thing you were saying right at the beginning, in the sense like, and this is I think if there are any, when I say, I mean the white, I mean especially, I mean this is going to be on record, so you'll be able to share it again, watch it again. But to our white audience, it's something that it's like a vicious circle. It's perpetuated. So regardless of the forum, regardless of the situation,
right.
And this is also very often like, I mean, this is something, you know, as a man, I really had to learn, like, I literally had to learn how to shut up. It's like, it was an actual, like, it's serious. It literally is an actual skill I had to like really learn. It's like, you shut up and listen. And when I was learning, I literally like tell my girlfriends, you know, like girls who are friends, like, please tell me to shut up. Tell me when to shut up. And that's like, literally is like, don't be shy about it. Don't shut up and listen. And I think it's the same kind of approach you need to take. It's like, when you find yourself either as a guy having the need to speak over a woman because she's saying something that like you can't really refute, maybe you should shut up. Maybe you should shut up and listen. Might just be a good thing. And I think it's the same kind of thing like with the white fragility. It's like when you find yourself in that space where you are turning, it's like, you guys seen the ad for like with the Snickers, right? When the person like just literally turns into a monster because they haven't eaten. Right?
They're angry.
It's like you're angry, but maybe the thing is like, you don't actually need a Snicker bar, right? Because a Snicker bar, what's it gonna do? It's gonna fill in that void for 2 seconds, right? But it's not gonna last, right? And so like think of it like that. It's like if you get that kind of angry feeling and oh my gosh, I need a Snicker bar. It's like kind of like, you know, it's like maybe I need something more nutritious. Maybe I need something deeper. Maybe I need to like delve in, you know, kind of like, you know, a bit more and look at myself. And I really think that's a way into like, you know, like self-questioning, reflection around kind of like, you know, what's bringing in this anger? Why am I so upset? And very often, if you take those same, take those same dynamics, like sometimes between a man and a woman, and you put two guys, it's just banter. It's just a good conversation, right? You take that same conversation from a CEO to another CEO, not an issue. But you take that conversation from a CEO and their EA, woo, you know, it's like kind of like, and I think that it's the dynamics and the context that I think that people really need to be aware of. And I think for a lot of people, it sounds like, oh my gosh, it's a lot. But you know, it's like a lot that you're sensing to deal with is a lot that the other person deals with every single day. And just going back to this guy here, like if we look at his language, this is what I was saying that was really interesting yesterday to Aisha. He says Aisha, so like it's like, and I don't know if you guys know, if you guys know,
it was like a taunt.
No, it's beyond. It's a taunt, but because the guy's actually culturally aware. So there's a group called Another Bad Creation that sang a song called Aisha, and that's how they say, and literally, and literally that's what he does. Like, so when you know the song goes like this. I'll sing it so you can hear it. Goes, no, and this is the chorus. The chorus goes, Aisha, exactly the same way. Aisha. Right. And so the guy is cultured. The guy is cultured. And beyond the fact that he knows his R&B, he also knows his rap, right? So it's like, I'm not gonna stop there. I'm gonna do the musical reference, and I'm gonna do the rap reference. I'm gonna call her a biatch. And like the extent that people go to. And the thing is, like, I think that what is, I can understand what I say, the shame that you could have as a white person when you see, you know, all these videos and maybe the exhibits that we're showing now and so on and so forth. And then when you hear the term white people, I understand how that could be jarring. I understand how that could be annoying, because it's the same sense that we get when there are negative traits, you know, said about Black people. But the thing is, like, it's to know, well, what kind of white person am I? Do I identify with this guy? No, then it doesn't concern you. So if people are talking about white people, you know which white people are talking about. you know what kind of white man is talking about. And same like the same term when women say like, you know, men, right? It's a certain kind of man, right? It's not all men, it's a certain kind of guy, right? So I think it's like the whole thing is like understanding the ways in which maybe subliminally or kind of like in the background that you might have been socialized to react in certain ways, not intentionally, but just because that's how everybody does react around you, right? And like when you observe that happening, you need to stop it. And, and I think that's kind of a way in kind of like in not being in between brackets fragile and not being susceptible. It's like, I'm like, I can see what's happening here. Like be the observer, you know, of yourself.
Yeah, but the thing I want to add to that too is that I feel like white people in general, and I will say in general, because I am talking about the majority, will refer to, may in conversation, and whether they admit it or not, private or public, will refer to other groups by their perceived race, right? But it's never a conversation, like they'll never talk about themselves in that way. It'll be, oh, so, you know, why do Black people do this? Or why do they like fried chicken? Or why, like, you know, or why do, you know, I've noticed this, right? And it's always an othering of, but it's never kind of a, when they talk about themselves, they don't make that distinction. It's because they have been taught it's the default. Like, why is it default? So that we don't need to talk about ourselves in that way. Because then when you start to do that, you recognize that there is this thing called whiteness, that there is this privilege that comes with it, and you don't want to accept that most of the things that you've probably obtained in your life is not because you're some excellent, educated, well, you know, just God, you know, person sent from heaven, right? It's because of your skin color. Like I literally was going to make a post on LinkedIn and say the only qualifications you need to get a job is white skin, and I'm very serious about it. And I say this because
that is so true. You could be any kind of white person, totally unqualified.
You can have a criminal record. It's been proven. You can have a criminal record and you will get hired, but they will not hire. Like, there are stats out there and research. I don't mean to make you laugh.
No. But like,
people need to hear. Okay, go ahead.
No, do you know what really kills me about that?
Are we having people in the chat engaged? Because I would love to see what the kind of comments that are coming up as we go.
I mean, no. Samuel represents so much white America, But gosh, I mean, the things like there's so many examples, right? This actually happened to me. So like I'm this is last year. So last year I was dating I think a black girl, and like we're in Brighton. So we get out of a car and like we're at the garage, and like so I'm very often I'm always dressed like this, right? And so in the UK and in my entire life, I've never ever been stopped by the police, ever. Okay. I've never stopped and searched my entire life. Like I'm up until now. Things could change. I can't because I'm not gonna stop being black, right? So
right. Put yourself out there.
Any day now. But and so like I go to the garage and it's late, and so when it's late in the garages here in the UK, they don't let people in because like very often like, you know, they get jacked, right? So the guy looks at me and I'm pointing to stuff he wants, he lets me in, right? And then when as I'm leaving, there are other black guys coming, but they have hoodies, right? And he doesn't let them in. And so I go back to the guy and I was like, why didn't you let them in? And he goes, but I said, but you look decent. Hold on, and this is not a white person. This is a Pakistani person. This is a brown person, right? Brown just like me. Brown just like me, right? Yeah. And so to what you were saying about like being white and getting any old job or getting any job just on the basic qualification of just being white. That is so true in the sense like people make assumptions. It's like the guy saw me and I said, for all you know, I could be a child abuser. For all you know, I could take cocaine. For all you know, I could be a drug dealer. It's like you can't tell nothing about somebody who's dressed in a certain way. And very often, let's put it this way: why is it do we call it a power suit? Right? Because you're projecting something, right? You wear the suit, you put the tie on to project a specific thing. That is not necessarily who you are, right? You have a presentation. It's like kind of like we haven't turned up on this webinar, kind of like, you know, me with my finger up my nose and like, you know, I don't know, a finger through my ear. Like, no, it's like we've turned up to do the webinar, right? Because we're doing a specific thing. So it's like, there's very little that you can tell from someone, but in society, it's an actual truth. Like what you're saying, Aisha, it's like, I could turn up anywhere and just be white and just be like, and just like apply for something and I'll get it. I'll get it because very often the person who's sitting opposite me, he's one of us, or she's one of us. And so they qualify. The minute that you're different, and it's very apparent that you're different, whether it's the fact that you're gay, whether it's the fact that you are transgender, and like you don't care to want to look like a woman or a man. It's like because like you're cool with the way you are. Whether it is that you have a visible or invisible ability, other ability that you don't want to hide. It's like kind of like, oh, and we've seen it. Like I don't know if you guys ever watched that program. What Would You Do? Right? It's often,
I used to love that. Yeah.
And it's so interesting how like when people are uncomfortable, yeah, but we don't think. Oh, and you probably had it when you applied for jobs, right? We don't think you'd be a right fit. We don't think it's a culture fit. But they're looking for somebody with you know. And I'm just like, yeah, I know exactly what that is. It's like I'm just too black for the job. And like, you know, and like what you're saying, actually, it's just so true. It's like you could just be white and turn up and just just get the job just because you're white and not be qualified. And like, and I think like, I don't know if you guys watched Shireen's thing on colorism today. She was saying in how often she's been in jobs where she's like the most qualified person, like, and she and how the difference in salary. So I when I was working Robert Half, I had an accident, and so I had to on my way to work. So basically, they had to pay my salary. Because initially, when they're paying my salary, they're paying like pretty much like almost my entire salary. I was like, whoa, this is awesome, right? It turns out that the salary band that I was in, the role that I had, which is like Europe, Middle East, Asia, and Pacific, right? Instructional designer. So every territory in the world apart from America, my salary is supposed to be $90K. Do you know how much those people paid me?
70.
No, lower. Go down. Further. Come on.
60.
Around 50K. 40K less than what I was supposed to get paid.
Wow.
Right? Wow. So the whole thing, like you're saying, the whole thing, like, and on top of that, I know my privileges. I know that I have male privilege, and I know I have light skin privilege, right? I know all those things. Like very often, like I'm not biracial. I'm 100% black. And if you guys know anything about what I say, Nigeria, they have the Yoruba people. They're very, very light skinned. Some of them even lighter than me. And very often, like, people always think, oh, you're mixed race, right? And when I speak like to white people, they gravitate towards me because they think I'm half them. And then like I'm just like, and very often my answer is like, I have nothing to do with white people. And when I say that, they're shocked. It's like, yeah, I'm 100% black. It's like, you know, and I don't like the idea of affinity because you think I'm like you. Like you have to like me for me, not because I'm half or because you think I'm half. It's like, no, just like me for me. And I really like the whole thing of like the whiteness, and like I'm like, you know, white is right and white is good. Is like I'm like, people need, if our white friends listening, you need, when I say get yourself a black friend, it's not going to get yourself a black friend. I have a black friend. It's like, understand their culture. No, like go home and cook their food. Understand the history behind the food. When it's cooked, you know, go into black neighborhoods, 100% black neighborhoods. Get your hair cut as a black person. Get to know our culture. Get to know us as a people. Because the funny thing that I find is like we've
had to do it all our lives. Everywhere we've
beyond even having to do it, I have never felt at any point in my life, maybe because we are lucky enough we grew up in your community, I've never felt that I have nothing to gain from not knowing a white person. Like it never occurs to me. Like, you know, I want to get to know people, right? So for our white folks listening who have like, when I'm talking about like, don't have the kind of interactions that we have with white people, in the sense like they come to our house, we cook. I cook pasta, I cook Thai food, I cook jollof rice, I cook, you know, I cook cray, I cook okra, you know, gumbo, you name it, right? I cook all those different things, right? But like there are very few of my white friends that I know who know how to cook a single black dish. right? They'll go. No, it's like they'll go to like the gentrified kind of like areas and like go to the restaurant, right? Now this is fantastic. But they don't know fucking history about it, nothing about it. So it's more. It's not so much like I think white fragility or say white supremacy exists because when you only indulge in your culture, when you only indulge with your people, when you only do what I say in between brackets white things, you cannot appreciate what there is to be gained from another culture. So therefore you don't see the value. You can't appreciate the value. So that's the reason why you end up in a situation where you're then going to be quashing that person to say, well, this, that, and the other. Well, white people, what? It's like you guys already dominate everything. It's like, please do not reinforce or shove that down my throat. It's like, tell me about how about how 3 Black women contributed to helping man go to space. Tell me about stuff like that. Tell me stuff maybe that even I don't know. Educate me. So yeah, I went off on a tangent there, but
that's okay. Should we get to some of the questions and other evidence?
Yes. So I mean, do you guys want to get to the questions? Some of the questions? Who wants to do that question first?
Yeah, let's go through some of the questions because I know people are probably loving to hear our feedback on some of the things that they sent in. And we can start with general questions and then later on kind of, move to like more specific ones if you want, or however you want to play it.
Let's work with the questions we had. Let's see, come aside from the beginning, and I'll go right. So, questions. Future, want to do yours first?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, I'll go with your question.
Okay, so
should I read out? You read out. You read out your own question. Got it.
Okay, you want to read it? You could read it.
No, you read it. You read it.
Okay. So the question is, can you talk about the concept of people needing to be very introspective about what they have been led to believe, which brews up individual prejudices to what actual reality is? Yes, I can. I'm a big proprietor. If you guys haven't seen me on LinkedIn with Sitting With Yourself, and Mervyn touched upon it earlier today, I believe that we will not move forward in the anti-racist work or be able to have vulnerable, courageous conversations unless you know you. And one of the quotes that I say is, we are Houdinis of not wanting to sit with our emotions, because some people will do anything, and I say anything, to mind numb themselves, whether it's going on social media, whether it's Netflix binge watching, whether it's you're turning to alcohol or exercise or eating or whatever you do to numb yourself of the reality of what things are. So I am on a mission to ask people to just be very self-aware, and being self-aware means sitting with yourself and sitting with the emotions that come up and being introspective to say, what do I do? What is my first thought? What is my last thought when I see a certain group of people? Do I clutch up my purse, which I've had happen to me countless times in my life when I'm walking by somebody? Do I say stereotypes, or do I think certain stereotypes about a certain group of people? Who are the friends I surround myself with? It's all the isms, right? Do you have a different group with you that's sitting next to you and that you could actually call friends, not just working, but friends that are other religions, that are other cultures, that are other races, that are other ages, that are other abilities, that are other sexual identities? It's all of that to see different perspectives and views. And until you could sit there and say the good, the bad, the ugly, because I've showed up sometimes not great either, right? We have to admit our faults, but say I'm on this journey as a person to get better, because if you can't sit with them, you will never see what your reality is, the prejudices you had, and how you are showing up. And I just did a post about this earlier by saying we've been tricked to believe that perception is reality. And I'm going to push back people with that, because here's the reality. The perception of what reality was for white people and what white people thought the reality of every other person in the world was is very different than the perception and reality of what Black people and people of color, what their reality is that we are living. So you can't even understand any of this until you begin with you first. And then you could sit with your emotions, manage your emotions, form positive relationships to build social awareness for everybody. So yes, that's my deep dive into your own self-awareness. This journey of anti-racism begins with you. It begins with but I can't get in your mind and have you do a tape of from birth till where you are, whatever age, what you have done, the thoughts that you have to do the work. So that's my thought on that. Thank you, Joshua. I'm with you in solidarity on this one, my friend.
Awesome. Do you have a specific question that you want to select, Aisha? One to 5?
No, you can just start with the first one, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, so from Matt, hey Matt, so glad you're here. He says, so what do you look for when differentiating who is genuinely receptive and open to acknowledging their role and being racially biased, whether it's conscious or not, versus who not to invest your time in educating since they are unwilling to accept and acknowledge their bias? That's a really great question. And then he says, on a personal note, thank you for being someone to share your wisdom with me. I highly appreciate. I am highly appreciative of learning from you. I am just so, that warms my heart. I'm thrilled when I write things and that resonate with so many people. So thank you for that, Matt. That's so incredibly sweet. I would say people who are not really receptive, one of the things that they're going to do is they're going to be a little bit combative. Mm-hmm. So no matter if you lay out the facts and say, this is the data, this is the research, I'm giving you clear examples of systemic racism, I'm giving you clear examples of how white supremacy has harmed Black people in America. I mean, there's redlining, there's the quote unquote war on drugs, there's mass incarceration. Like, I'm literally pointing out these things to you, but you come back with, oh, well, you know, but Black this, or but this. And if that's like a continuous cycle, you know that what they're really trying to do is just find a way to get you on their side to believe what they have already believed in their mind. And I really don't think that they're interested in changing. What they're really interested in doing is continuing to challenge that data, even though the numbers don't lie. And so I say for someone like that, that's a huge red flag to me that they're not really interested in learning. And I have also witnessed that on my LinkedIn. I will give people clear examples and I will very much clarify. And they're still like, they still want to do this whole back and forth and debate. And you can see when you look down that it's like they're clearly not getting it, but they're not getting it because they don't want to get it. And that's one way that you can
that's so true.
Kind of weed out and acknowledge who those people are. I would say on another note, if there is someone who their public stance is different from their private stance on racism or diversity or equity and inclusion, I would be very wary of that person. I would think that they're really not interested in truly coming to understand the part that they play because they don't want to face the reality of having someone really confront them about their racist thoughts or about their behavior. So if they're willing to kind of like Slack you a private message or say, yeah, I thought that was wrong or X, Y, and Z, you know, that really wasn't cool how they treated this person. But then at the office, you know, if like a racial incident comes up and they're just quiet or they're just nowhere to be found, and, you know, that to me is a very red flag. Like, I need your public actions to match your private actions. And if they don't, I feel like you're someone who is not ready to be on that journey, to be confronted with the truth about how you perpetuated racism in and of yourself. I would also say just an unwillingness to really get comfortable. So one of the first panels I ever did, I asked the two hosts who brought me on, and it was a very safe, it was a very loving space. And just filled with so much grace. It was very beautiful. And I asked them to give me an example of a time that they have had a racist thought or perpetuated racism. And one of the guys, they both were very much open. And one of the guys, his name is Nick, shout out to Nick. He said, I was walking in New York City and I saw this Black guy and I jumped. And he said, to this day, I feel so terrible about it. because I don't know why I jumped. I just jumped. Like something in him made him afraid. And like the guy said, what are you afraid of Black people? And he just felt so terrible about it, right? And inside there was something society has been telling him he should be afraid of Black people. So I don't fault him for that, right? Like as Ibram says, you guys have been, white people in a sense, have been the victims in a sense of where you've been preyed upon to believe these racial narratives about us for the economic gain of a few, right? That's where it all boils down to. Racist ideas have come from a need to maintain, it all ties back to an economic reason. And so, again, I love that he was vulnerable and that he said that, and we had this moment. And the woman panelist, who I love, her name is Rihanna. She also explains one time where she was in the office and a Black woman came in and she held, I forgot which position it was probably like a VP or executive of some sort. And she was really surprised that a Black woman would hold that position. And it was like, to me, it was kind of like a shock to my system, but it was also like, I was so grateful for both of them to acknowledge in those moments, this is how they felt. These are the ideas that have held, but they were also at a point where they were able to recognize, where they were actually seeking to change, to say, this is wrong. I shouldn't have these thoughts. I shouldn't be thinking this way. And so when you are talking with someone and you notice that there's a lot of resistance, they're not willing to get to a space where it's uncomfortable. They're not willing to get to a place where they're being transparent. And it's always just like, kind of brushing it off. I would say I would not waste my time with those people. And I would focus on those who, again, are not afraid to open up, are not afraid to say, yes, this is how the world has been, this is how I have been, but I want to go forth and make a difference moving forward. And yeah, being open to conversation. There has to be an openness on both sides. Like if it feels like if it's a constant tug and pull, it's going to wear you down. And that's probably one thing that they want you to do. They want to wear you down, right? So I would say completely avoid them. And that's, not completely avoid in the sense of like, whatever, but in a sense of not putting all of your attention there. You can have it in the back of your mind that this person really isn't interested in helping to contribute to an anti-racist society or an anti-racist organization or just an anti-racist life in general, right? And so that's not where I'm going to spend my efforts. So hopefully that helps answers your question, Matt. And you can always hit me up if you have any others, my LinkedIn or so forth.
So should I go to? I'm going to go to panel question for you.
Yeah.
Future. So panel question.
I think Future has like some evidence of that. Probably, I think that was she wanted to share out. Future, is that correct? I can't hear you.
Yes.
Are you on mute? Okay.
Which one was it? I'd have to. What I suggest that we go. If you tell me which exhibit it is, I'll look that up, and then in the meantime, you could do a panel question. Do you have specific choice from the panel questions?
Okay.
Do you have a number that you want?
No, just throw them at us.
Okay. I'm gonna go with 13.
Okay. All right.
You know me.
Okay, an opportunity to create some change in a very structurally racist, white supremacist religious organization, mostly comprised of inherently good people, mostly white. What would your top tip be to help the white folks at the top to engage? Whew. Okay, I guess my first question is, see how we call, I have to call this out, right? So people could notice. Why is there a need to put inherently good? Because I think people forget and they want to say, because they'll see this in the media, right? This is how the media plays out. You know where I'm going with this, Mervin. The media plays out and people assume if you're good, you can't be a racist. And that's not
right.
That couldn't be further from the truth.
But also I think that.
But what?
Okay. No, it's not but what. But I think that the thing is like, what we have to get away from, like to not even to support, but to, how can I put this? To further enhance what is it you're saying as well. It's like the whole good and bad thing. It's like, I'm like, racism is bad, right?
Right.
But like, doing things for racist reasons is worse. So and racism is just a bias, right? So for example, like, if you're a right-handed person, you will build a house with everything, for a right-handed person, not because you're not thinking of left-handed people, but because basically everybody in your family is right-handed. So therefore, like, the short-sightedness is not malice, it's not bad. It's just an ignorance, right? And then you end up having like a left-handed kid, right? And then you realize, oh my gosh, this is really difficult for my child to navigate. And it's only when that reality comes into your contextual, everyday lived experience that you then become aware. So I think like to what you're saying, like, stressing that people are inherently good. What, excuse my French, what the fuck does that mean?
Right.
I'm inherently good. I'm inherently good until I'm not. Right? It's like that's the truth for everyone.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And that's what we need to realize as individuals and as people, is that how much you know somebody is purely based upon the limited experiences and context in which you experience life with that person. Beyond those contexts, anything that is not lived yet, you have no fucking clue. Excuse my French again. You have no idea. So like, the Mervin that you see now, like, in a suit and everything, I would not be the same person if you have a knife to my neck and you're trying to kill me. It is not the same person. It is like, I'll be trying to kill you. And I will try to make sure that you are finished, that you cannot come at my life. But in another context, I'm a different kind of Mervin. So I think like the whole thing of inherent goodness, it's kind of like, what tells you? It's like such a no. It's what I say, not even a nonsense. It's like there's zero information. There's zero data to like say somebody's inherently good, right? So I mean, I really think like just like, sorry, I just had to like kind of Sorry,
okay.
It was your question.
Okay, so here's but this is the stuff that we need to point out, right? We need to point out this stuff. And Zareen, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I think we're not. Please know that we're not trying to come at you. We're just trying to come at the way that people say things, so that it could give you a broader lens at how it does come across. So I can't sit here and say the people that you work with are inherently good. I'm not going to sit here because I don't know if you even know that's the reality. My suggestion would be, what's going to drive a lot of this change, it's equity equals action, right? So I could sit here all day long, and we are trying to educate people, and talking will get us few places, but it comes down to policies and laws too. So at your workplace, what do your policies look like? Who's your HR person? Who are the lead people that you could go talk to about this, of what the policies and laws of where you're currently working at look like? What's your hiring process? What are you doing to keep the engagement going, and to educate the people that are with you collectively? And I think keep being you. If you are truly an anti-racist, then keep plowing through, because we're on an uphill battle. Bus boycotts went over a year long. That's the reality. So I have no idea how long we're going to be in this for, but it can't be we did equity training or we just did one and done. It is literally a lifelong journey. And the people, I would say, gather your people, gather your tribe, and the more voices that could be amplified, the better that you and your organization will be as a whole. Do you want to go to another question?
I would like to address something. You cannot force people to change. You cannot get them to think a certain way. If leadership is not already committed and coming to you as an employee and saying, this is what we need to change about our organization, then I highly doubt there's anything that you can do at this point to convince them. What you can do is what Future has said, is rally those people that are with you, that think the same way as you, that are very committed to justice, and you can maybe, start an employee resource group, petition that, or just bring up some ideas of ways that you think the organization can be better or work better to leadership. But honestly, I feel like if leadership hasn't already made some sort of effort in I guess, engaging in this conversation, especially when it's in everyone's face. Like, no one can hide from it at this point, right? So like, everyone is very clearly aware of what's been happening in America. They're aware of the protests. And most of people have started to kind of dive in and dig in and do and kind of learn about the history of America. And to that point, has your organization issued any kind of, I'm just curious, Black Lives Matter, statement of solidarity, right? And if they have, that means that they've already taken a step to acknowledge that there's something wrong. Mm-hmm. Now, and if they've done that, then it's incumbent upon them to continue that work. It's not incumbent upon you. You can do what you can do with what's in the space that you have, but like, I cannot see me going up to, the CEO or board member or just anyone and trying to tell them that this should be important. They already have in their minds what's important. Let me tell you that. When you're in leadership, there are priorities that you're constantly reevaluating. And so if this is not on the top of your mind, it's probably very intentional. And I think there was something else I was going to say about that. Oh my gosh, I think I lost my train of thought. Oh, no. So if it is a religious organization, I don't know kind of what religion it is, but maybe you can appeal to the human sensibility or the values that they share in that religion, whether it's Islam, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Judaism, appeal to them from that sense. You say that you believe X, Y, Z, but this is what, from your standpoint, from what you say you believe, this is what it means to treat people equally. This is what it means to treat your fellow man. And I would love to see you live up to those values that you say that you profess that you have as a whatever you are. That, I think, maybe can be one way to approach it if you want to. But at the end of the day, I don't think that you can convince people to really care about this work if they haven't started already.
Mm-hmm. Should we go to the next question, Mervyn, since we have 15 minutes?
Okay.
If we stay longer if we have to. If people want to hang out and stay on, I don't know.
If you guys want to hang out, just let us know in the chat. We can go through the questions.
That's a good one.
This is anonymous.
In an organization where you're the only Black person, been there. How do you tackle white fragility?
Honestly, from my perspective,
I'm laughing, right? Because DM us, whoever this is, DM us for your support. We will seriously, mentally support you because it's a mental marathon. Yeah, it really is. And for me, I don't worry about it anymore. Like, I don't worry about how someone is going to take the truth that I'm saying. What I can be mindful of is, and again, we're not going to use fragility anymore. We're going to use white rage. So how do we tackle, as the only Black person, as the only Black person in the organization, how do we tackle white rage, right? We're going to let them be angry. We're going to let them be angry because that's their business. Like, what I'm going to do as a person, as a human being, I'm going to very diplomatically, without emotion, I'm going to present you the facts. And I'm going to say, it's been maybe 3-4 years since I've received a promotion, and I want to bring to your attention all of the performance reviews that I have gotten over the years that have been superior, have been a plus, or whatever it is. And I would just like to understand why. Like, bring them the data. Don't have any emotion in it. Let them see the numbers, right? Or address it as diplomatic as you can. And then how they feel is how they're going to feel. Mm-hmm. You cannot continue as a Black person to walk around this world worrying about what some white person is going to say about you. That is damaging. That will lead you in the hospital. It's led people I know in the hospital, right? It's led me to have panic attacks and a breakdown at work where I was literally crying my eyes out, right? So I'm not concerned about how you are going to receive my pleas for my pleas for justice or my pleas for just,
just treat me decent, or just being fair across the board, and not treat me different than my white colleagues, that it really does not interest me at this point. What interests me is, are you going to take action on the information that I gave you? And if you're not going to take action on the information, if you're going to keep, BSing and just running me around in circles, then I know who I'm dealing with in the back of my mind. And I know they have a decision to make, that I'm either going to start looking for somewhere else to go, or I'm going to start gathering, and while I'm doing that, gathering evidence of, the slights based in racism that have been taken against me. So at this point in history, we're no longer tiptoeing around what, people not, I guess, again, like it's like we're scared to wake up the monster. Let the monster awake. What are they going to do? Like, what's the worst they can do besides fire you? And then you have a lawsuit, discrimination against them. I mean, literally, my advice, again, so facts and data and number, that's what people, I mean, that's what happens in business all the time. That's what they look at. And there's nothing that you can say to that. And if they want to try to dispute that in some way, you know in the back of your mind who you're dealing with, and that you need to get out as fast as you can.
I guess here's the other thing I'll add, though. Stay strong and know you, right?
Yeah.
Don't let them or the organization mentally break you, because I, like you, Aisha, I've been there too. And it's a bad place. We shouldn't have to be there, but I guess you're the person who knows the culture and climate. And if this culture and climate has always been this culture and climate, and you don't see it getting better, is it worth your mental sanity? And I would tell people, I don't care what the price tag is. It's not worth anybody's mental sanity to stay in a place that you have to tackle every day. The microaggressions, the policies that aren't equitable, the pay gap. I mean, we could go on and on and on. So you kind of have to make an internal decision. Mervin, a thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what you touched on in the end for me. It's really kind of like it's a matter of like kind of like evaluating kind of like, evaluating what is valuable, literally. Like, what matters to you? It's like, and not just at a material, at a fundamental level, at an essential level. It's like what matters. And also, I think I said this yesterday, and like I mean, trying to coin it in a kind of way that kind of makes sense. But I have my two daughters, and I was thinking to myself, and I think I wrote it down. I said there is no pride. I think as parents, or even as an uncle, or even as just somebody who's older, who's trying to leave something for the future generations. And I can't remember the exact quote, but I was saying something to this kind of effect. I was saying, like, there is no pride to be had in being able to effectively teach future generations to navigate a world that is broken. Like there is no pride. There is no pride. It's like, I'm like, oh, well, I've really taught you how to like just like live in a racist, sexist, ableist, misogynist world. Now you go forth. It's like I'm just like, no. I've decided like no on that. Like that is like not negotiable to me. So it's like I'm like at a fundamental level, and this is the reason, like, I'm not gonna make no comments about it. I'm out of work, but I'm out of work, because I'm sticking to my values. I will not be able to look my two daughters in the eye and say, honey, you know what? It's like, we live in a world where men simply do not understand that it's not okay to rape women. So therefore, this is the world I'm going to hand out to you. It's like, I'm like, no, it's like kind of like we have to do better as a race, as a human race. It's like kind of like, I keep on saying this, like people talk about diversity and inclusion. I really want everybody on this panel to think about this, right? Planet Earth, our planet, like Elon Musk is one of my favorite people because he makes things like really obvious, right? He's very condescending, but for a reason. Planet Earth accommodates everybody, right? It doesn't say, well, because you're disabled, you don't get to breathe the air. It doesn't say, oh, because you're gay, you don't get to breathe the air. You don't get to drink the water. Right? It allows for all kinds of different people to be born on this planet, to eat the food, to swim in the water, to take the plane. Do you know that when you're in a plane, you're probably taking a plane with somebody who's gay, somebody who's straight, somebody who's transgender, somebody who's a Muslim, somebody who's a Jew? But the plane doesn't discriminate, does it? The plane doesn't say, oh my gosh, the pilot of this plane is Muslim. I simply will not take off. It's like, no, guys. It's like let's get real now. Let's get real. And that's like just going back to like, you know, in an organization where you're the only Black person, how do you tackle white fragility? What matters to you? And to our white colleagues, it's like, to be quite frank, we have to be working towards a day where, like, there is no such thing as white fragility. There is no such thing like, why would anybody want that as a reference? Want that as a tag? Like, you know, it's like kind of like, I'm not fragile. I've got my shit together and I can see the value in people, period. You don't want to be fragile. You don't want to be susceptible. You know, it's just these very, very simple things. It's like kind of like, so it's like what ultimately do you value? Do you want to be able to look at your children and say, I am handing you the keys to navigate a broken world. Here, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of myself. So, you know, I just think like that's just like something that like we should think about.
Right, absolutely. And then for me, I would just throw in once you, and also I think Future's waiting to be let back in, Merv. I would just throw in while you're doing that. Why are you the only Black person at the organization? I have to really question and think about, why is it that you have not left? Because clearly you're in an organization that does not value you and does not value Black people as a whole. And so I would really start to question that. Like, I made a post, I think I made it early this morning, and it's like, and I really cautioned Black people. I said, it's not an accomplishment to get accepted into a racist white supremacist system. Like I mean, I've been, you know, fallen victim to it in the past, but it's like, you know, I've come across posts that's like, I've just got accepted into Facebook. I'm like, well, do you see how the numbers with their Black employee bases and how, you know, just tone deaf they are on race? But I understand that you think that it's going to elevate your resume in some way. Are you really willing to risk losing yourself and being acquiescent to a racist white supremacist system in the name of success? Like, where's your pride? You know what I mean? Like, have more pride in yourself. And so for me, I would really challenge you to think about the structure of that organization, to think about the leadership, to think about if you are witnessing a lot of white, quote unquote, fragility, what does that say about the place that you're in? And then what does it say about you that you're willing to stay in that place? I really want you to think about that. And, you know, feel free to hit me up in or my LinkedIn inbox. I'll be very happy to coach you through just that thinking. Go ahead.
Okay. So here's what I want to say. Okay. Cause we don't know the person's situation, right?
All right. We don't.
Okay. And because the one thing I'll add, I can only speak to my experience, right? We bring our experiences to it. Literally where I grew up, I was the only, I will repeat that again, because I don't think many people could say this. I was the only, not even categorized as Black person, the only minority in my graduating class in high school. All right. I want everybody to let that sit in. So essentially, this person could be living in a town where it's a town filled, right? Like they might be one or two or three, there might be few of them in that town. So then essentially, if there's only few of them, if that's the situation they're in, right?
No,
like there is only one.
Absolutely.
So, and we don't, direct message all of us so we could understand your situation better, but we're just trying to throw out answers of not knowing the whole context too.
Right. I'm glad you said it. Good point.
Okay, Mervin, next one. The lucky winner is?
Question 2.
Okay. Can you give us an example of a tactic that has been helped you turning a white supremacist to reason about issues that affect us and ally with us?
I could. I could. So my best friend in the world is Peter Van Camp. And when I say he's a white Dutch guy, and we became friends in a very, very funny way. So I was working at IBM in 2007, I joined there. I was working as a learning specialist, but in the admin side of things, and we kind of became friends. And in Belgium, for those who don't know, they have a celebration called Saint Nicholas, right? And so it's super racist. They have this guy called Père Fouettard, and basically Père Fouettard is like this a blackface dude, right? Literally, white people dress up in blackface still to this day. Like they do it in Amsterdam and also in Belgium, and he basically goes to me, oh well, for Saint Nicholas, you don't need to dress up, right? So this is a guy I barely knew. Right? And so he goes to me. I think it's funny now, right? It was funny then, right? He goes to me and he goes, oh well, for Saint Nicholas, you don't need to dress up because you're already black, right? And so I said to him, and we were on a trip. We were on a train trip, out from work, like back into the city, and that was and it was a slow train. It was a 1 hour trip, and during that 1 hour trip, I schooled Peter. Right? I told him all the possible reasons why that was wrong. Right? And he listened. He didn't try to fight me on it and stuff. He listened the entire time, and when I say he's my true friend, I worked in the IBM in 2007, and it literally that one moment changed our entire friendship. And in 2008, financial crash hit, and I was out of work, and we ended up actually sharing living in an apartment together. I was out of work for almost a year and a half, and during that 1 year and a half, Peter, a white guy, my friend, he paid my rent. He paid my rent for a year and a half. I owed Peter 10,000 euros, right? At the end of that. And he taught me, and I was like, for those who don't know, I have ADHD, and I also have a touch of autism. So it's like, I don't pick up on cues, and I'm not really that good socially. So he taught me how to network. And in that time, that was also the time when I actually got diagnosed with ADHD, because he had a friend who had ADHD who kind of noticed it in me, and I got diagnosed. And when I got my job at Accenture, and when Accenture let me go, and they had to give me severance pay, that's when, like, I think 3 years after, he had lent me the money, is when I was able to pay him back. And not once during that time did he pressure me for the money, because when I learned Dutch after I got I got let go, I learned Dutch in a year and a half. Right, I learned like really, really fast. Like, so I got put on Ritalin, and it pretty much changed my life. And I was able to do that and do a certification in purchase management and everything. And he always knew that I was going to get back on my own feet, but he also knew that I wasn't able to get a job because of the color of my skin. So he had no one. He understood where I was coming from. Not just like, this is my black friend. He could see, because like to this day, like he has his partner. He's bought a home. He's done his home. There's not that many years to separate us, but like, he's younger than me, and he's accomplished more than me financially. And like, we all know, like, and like what the reason that is. But like, that's a reality. For example, like when we discuss it, he's fine with it. He's obviously not that he's fine. It's like, oh, like whatever. But he recognizes that reality. So I mean, that is one way I could say that, like, that it wasn't so much a tactic, more of a life situation. An instance in which I was able to, like, I guess educate or enlighten somebody who was completely ignorant, to the point that, like, he thought that it was okay to make a joke at not even at my expense, but at the expense of the color of my skin. And at the end of that 1 hour journey, it started a great friendship. And to be quite frank, I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you guys if it wasn't for Peter. So, there you go.
So that's amazing. I think we're at time, but I want to see if there are people that would like to stay on, because if they would, then we're happy to kind of sit with you and still go through more questions. But we also want to say to those that have joined in and have tuned in for this time that we're so grateful that you were able to join us. Thank you so much for being here with us, for listening, to being receptive, to being willing to have these conversations. We also apologize about the confusion in the start time. So we all owe you like a little cookie or something, I don't know. But just so grateful to have you be willing to do the work for you allies out there that is necessary to create a more equitable society for all of us. And so we love you. Thank you so much. And just hit us up on the YouTube comments and let us know, let us know your thoughts, and also let us know if you want us to continue. I'm going to check them now.
Okay, so just put a yes in there if you want us to continue, and we'll continue.
Yeah, just write yes.
And maybe if you have a question that you want to ask directly through the chat and YouTube, just let us know and shoot it through there, and then we'll put it on screen, and we'll answer the questions. Also, I'm going to put in the chat. I'm going to put a link to. I had a lot of stuff to do. I was supposed to create a new resource, but for those maybe who haven't already gotten the anti-racist resource, I'll put the link directly to it right now in the chat, so you guys can access it. But there is a microaggression lexicon coming through. I'm working on, and also a gender and sexuality. Sexual orientation lexicon as well. And good news, you guys didn't know this, Future and Aisha, but somebody reached out to me, and the anti-racist resource is gonna get a digital treatment.
Yes.
Nice.
Yep. So people there might be a whole app that you can actually use on your phone, and So I have the call next Tuesday.
Okay.
So so that's gonna be pretty cool.
Awesome. And we have a couple people that said yes. Angelica says yes. She would like us to stay on. Christina said yes. There's someone else to say yes. So again, for those of you who have to go, we totally understand. Thank you so much for being with us. This is not going to be the last. This is one of and a series that we're going to have with some very hopefully really anticipated and great guests in the future. So just look out for more communication about that. But for those of you who are staying, let's jump into some more questions.
Okay, no problem.
Fired up about it.
And here's the other thing, you guys, because we know we're doing a series. This isn't one and done.
Yeah.
Then all the questions that we had can carry over out of respect to everybody that took their time.
Absolutely.
You're not going to be lost, and then it will be recorded, so you could watch it back too.
Yeah, and also, if push comes to shove, also what we'll do is like the panel questions. We have your emails for those of you who gave it, and what we'll do is basically maybe even send it through in written form. Oopsie daisy. I made a mistake. I was looking. I did number 4, so I'm just going to go through them. So, allyship. Let's do number 1. Allyship is definitely essential. Nevertheless, what are your thoughts about white corporate D&I corporate leaders?
Okay, let me jump in here. This is an absolute no. Is it, guys? I swear, like I am the most loving. It may not seem like, I just want to just say this really quickly. It may not seem like it, but I am one of the most loving, one of the most kind. I'm not going to use my best friend is white kind of thing, even though maybe I just did. But so no, there's literally 3 of us. Like they're like a 3 trio. It's so interesting. So it's me, I'm Black. My first best friend is white, and my second one is Korean. And it's like we're really just like this. It's so funny when we go out because it's just like we're the 3 amigos. But anyway, and I honestly, one of the things that I always promote is I feel like, yes, when you come to a realization that as a white person that you have done these harms and these ills to people, don't stay in that guilt. It's okay, right? It's not your fault. You've been a victim of the system, and that's how you've been able to be, a victimizer in a sense. So it's like, I very much have that grace for people. I know some other people don't, and that's on them. They're on some other stuff, right? Where they're just like really unforgiving. But I understand that at the root of it, it comes down to economics. And I understand the history behind things. And so I can say emphatically, it's you have been born into a system that has conditioned you to believe a certain way. And so I do not fault you for that. What I would fault you for is if you come to this realization and you continue to behave in the way that you do because you'd rather have a leg up than to see equity across all races. So I would just like to say that I love everyone. But again, back to this is an absolute no. If you do not have the lived experience of a person of color, you do not have the authenticity and you do not have the authority to speak to those experiences, because I feel like there are going to be, there's racism that you're working through in yourself, right? These biases and that you're having, that maybe you're not quite there yet. And that can really hinder you in how you see the world, and because you've been brought up in this white frame, and you're trying to dismantle that. And that's going to take some time. And until that's fully worked through, which I'm not sure, if that's ever going to happen in this lifetime, right. I think that you are doing a disservice to people who are educated on the matter, who have experience on the matter, and who also have the lived experience where they can actually, it's something in their soul, like they've grown up having to navigate from birth this world as a Black person, as an Asian person, as a person of color, and that's a very personal thing. So I absolutely do not think that there's any space for a white person to be a CDO, which is a Chief Diversity Officer. I do think, though, that you can have someone that is white on your staff. So maybe you say like a diversity manager or, something of that sort, but you're working in tandem with a person of color, and more than likely it would be my hope that it is a Black person, that you're working in tandem with them on projects and not kind of just overseeing the whole thing. That for me is an absolute, I find it ridiculous. Like when I see websites and the CDO is a white person, I'm like, you guys are like, you really are the most tone deaf organization that I've ever come across. Because that in itself is a form of anti-Blackness. How are you, as a white person who we all know have been conditioned to think and to be anti-Black, how are you going to, from your frame of mind, like I don't care if you march before, I don't care if you have Black friends, I don't care if you donated to Black organizations, it does not line up, and it can never compare to the fear that I have when I step out the door as a Black woman. It can never compare to me trying to decide whether I'm going to straighten my hair one day or just leave it as is because I'm afraid of what the white person's going to think, that I'm not professional, right? It will never measure up to that experience. And it's future, and Mervyn, you want to say something to the topic, you can.
No, I was just thinking that, like, it's like I use mind maps a lot, and very often, I'm for proportionate representation. So like the example I gave earlier about like the fact like the planet doesn't discriminate is like it's common sense, right? So for me it's like kind of like there for me it's like the model has to change. I'm when I say people are gonna like when I say I'm anti-leadership in the sense like the world as we know it is a pluralistic world. Right, it's a world of multiples, right? In which I kind of like life, like I'm alive in the same way that there's life in a stone, in the same way there's life in a worm. It's like it's all different ways of being alive, right? It's like it's multiple ways of existing, like in space and in life as well. So for me, it's like if you just take that as a fundamental truth, right? You have to have. I'm getting an echo from you. Future. Are you out of the stream or back in the stream?
I have to switch to my phone.
Okay, then. So, okay, right. So should I add you for your phone?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, and then I remove you from your PC. Anyway, we're after hours now. I remove it. There you go. Okay, cool. So no. So if you just take that simple premise, it's a D&I team, from my perspective, should not have just one leader. It's like, you should have a D&I, what I say, caucus, what you want to call it, or D&I.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, in a sense, like there should be a transgender person. There should be a person of small stature. There should be a Black person. There should be a cisgender person. And when you have, one of my favorite like TV shows of all time, was and is Star Trek, right? The Star Trek Federation, right? I love Star Trek, right? Because basically you have all these different people who come together and they talk it out. Right? It's like kind of like they get to understand each other, the Klingons and the culture and so on and so forth. And that's the idea. It's like you have a cisgender person sitting next to a transgender person, sitting next to a gay person, sitting next to a person of small stature sitting next to a person with disabilities, and then they can come with those lived experiences and help the organization shape, a proper diversity inclusion program where everybody is considered. Because if you don't have that proportionate representation, you can't have. How in the world, me as an able person who has 2 arms and 2 legs, how the hell can I create a space to help somebody who's in a wheelchair navigate that space? I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue. You need that person in your team, in your organization to say, hey guys, the way you guys have set this office up is completely messed up. So if you don't have the people that you are saying that you're trying to include in your organization that are part of the conversation to help create that space for them to be included in it, it's not going to work. That's kind of my take on it.
Yes, I absolutely agree. But I think that the person that's heading it up needs to be a Black person. And I'm very staunch on that. I definitely agree that the team has to be very diverse. Like you said, me as a Black woman, I can't speak to what it's like to be an Asian female or Latinx. I can't speak to that, and I need to have a diverse team. But I definitely do not believe that the person in charge of that should be anything but,
No, and the reason why I agree with you, and I mean, initially I thought I'd take issue with it, but the reason why I agree with you in the end is because I think it's important for that person to be a Black person. Why? Because societally, Black people are the lowest, lowest denominator, right? We have the least value. So if you're going to speak to somebody who's gone, like I said, who's gone through that experience their entire life, it literally changes things immensely, because that person's only drive is to bring the maximum value to every other person around them, right?
Yep.
That those person are seen and that they're heard. It's not kind of like a Black agenda. It's every marginalized person agenda. So,
yes, and because we've experienced the brunt of it, I feel like we can have the most empathy because we have been the corporate America, not even corporate America has put up a Black face and has made them the target for everything, right? And I think I kind of want to use that to segue into Angelica's question. Joshua said he has to sign off. Looking forward to this. Thanks, Joshua. Yes, we'll have some more. So glad to have you. But Angelica says, how can we, the Latinx community, show up in the workplace and workspaces, for example, LinkedIn, for the Black community that does not take away from Black voices, for example, not perpetuating colorism?
Which question was that?
No, it's not on there. I was asking the people that's still on what questions did they have. Yeah, because I wanted to honor the people that were still on to see if they had anything that they wanted. Yeah. Oh, and Future said she lost signal, but she'll get back on when she can.
Yeah, when she gets home, yeah, that's all. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead.
So I mean, do you want to go ahead with the question, or you want me to start?
No, you go ahead. You can. Okay.
So Angelica, thank you so much for the question. I feel, how can the Latinx community show up in the workplace for their Black brothers and sisters? First, I believe that you have to address and make sure that you understand. I'm hearing something in the background. I'm not sure what that is. It's maybe like static, but it's throwing me off. It's like an air conditioner or something. I don't know.
Is that me? It's gone?
Okay, it's gone now. Yeah, it's gone. I think first you have to understand how you have yourself, or how the Latinx community has been anti-Black. And I think once you are willing to work through that and come to the a very hard realization of the beliefs that you have had about Black people, I think it's only then where you can start to be a real ally. Because if not, then you can perpetuate anti-Blackness and do it without even realizing it and cause more harm. So first I would say, get real. I don't know what background you are. I mean, if you from your ancestors are from Dominican Republic or from Spain or from like where you're from, but in each country, I can say almost emphatically, almost in every country, right, there has been a specific stereotype that has been held, or narrative that has been held against Black people. So even in the Dominican Republic, colorism is a huge problem, right? Like, so you can have your darker skinned brothers and sisters, like, that are treated very less than, like, you know, they speak Spanish just like you. They grew up on the island just like you. For centuries, their family has been there. But because they're darker, they are treated a certain way. And there's this girl, I think her name is, oh gosh, I can't think of it right now. She was on this show. Was it Love and Hip Hop? I don't know. But she was an Afro-Latina. And she was just talking about how being a darker skinned person from the Latinx community has its very own challenges because of the way that they think about dark-skinned people. So my advice is to first recognize the beliefs that you have previously held, the beliefs that maybe your family holds, right? I remember I'm from like many different races. So I've had a boyfriend who was Chinese. I've had a boyfriend who was Puerto Rican. I mean, to be very candid with you guys, I remember going to my boyfriend's house at the time. This is years ago. Puerto Rican, and his mom saw me come in the door, and she was just like her face was just like, who's this Black girl that you're bringing in the house? like where's the long hair? Where's the blue eye? Where's the, like, who is this, right? And it was just written all over her face. And so you may have people in your community, your family that think that, and I don't want to really belabor the point, but that's the first thing you do. And then once you get past that, once you understand and start to work on getting rid of those biases that you've held against Black people that have caused you to think a certain way, then you can speak up when you see things in the workplace and when you see things on LinkedIn. Let me see, I'm just trying to give a very, maybe just another a concrete example. Don't try to make it about you. Don't come in and say, yes, I totally understand what you're saying. I know how hard it is, what you're going through because Spanish people go through XYZ. Don't do that. Like, because then you're taking the conversation and you're trying to make yourself a part of a struggle that you're really not a part of, because the Black experience is very different. So I would say that's one of the things to caution about. If you want to be an ally and you want to come alongside of us, make sure that you are looking at it purely from I want to uplift you. And I'm not going to, I know I have my own struggles as a Latinx woman, but this is not the point for me to address it right now. And there'll be a time when I'm going to stand up for you and for your cause. I remember one of the organizations I worked with, I noticed that they had a lot of like Black, I guess, faces in their marketing and on their Instagram, because it was like a cool thing to do. Like, we're this cool organization, we love all people, and look at all these Black people that we have on our site. And I challenged them and I said, well, you don't have any Asian people anywhere on your Instagram. Like, you don't have any Asian people anywhere on the boards that I'm seeing when I travel back and forth to work. And you can imagine how that conversation went and how the rest of my tenure with that organization went as well. But it's so funny because maybe close to a year later, I was somewhere, and I can't say where because it'll probably give the company away, but I saw some marketing material and it had Asian people on it. And I was just front and center. And I was like, oh, before they was happy to get rid of me or not really trying to hear my voice, but now they've actually, somebody must have put the pressure on them that they had to make a change. And so again, I will advocate for people and not make it about me when I'm really truly being an ally. And that's what I think Latinx people in this hour should do. Oh my gosh, I hope that wasn't so long. I can talk, y'all. I can really talk. I hope I'm saying something important.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Angelica is like kind of like I don't know. I kind of, how can I say this? I think it's more a question of banding together. So, like in the human experience. So it's like it's not so much like kind of like. I think like rejection based upon, on zero objectivity, on zero evidence, no matter where and who it's coming from is not nice. And I think more so when the reason that you're being, rejected or objectified or, oppressed is something that is very visible about you. So I think like exactly to what what Aisha's saying is like, I'm like, it's not so much like saying to people, oh, I understand how that is. It's probably more about recognizing how bad, that kind of discrimination is, and asking yourself, are there ways in which, I contribute to that in my actions, my reactions, my thoughts, things I say, things I don't say, or things I don't do. So also like not engaging with having zero engagement with the community, that is also a form of violence, towards them. It's like it's also kind of like a form of violence. It's like it's like kind of like you just don't even acknowledge their existence. So I think like somebody and a connection of mine was asking me, I had a short consultation call with her. It's like, and she wanted to do something for the Black community. And she was a white person. She basically is like, I want to give them a voice. And I was like, you don't want to come. You don't exactly. You don't want to come at it that way because if you're gonna go to, and it was Black women. It's like Black women can speak for themselves. It's like you can't come to the table kind of saying, well, I want to help them with blah blah, because it's like kind of like the thing that like I think like right now I'm trying to, even though it's COVID, I'm trying to date, right? And one of the people, for example, like one of the people that because you already told you, I already told you, right? One of the people that I definitely do not date, right? Because I don't discriminate. A bit like Aisha, I've dated a Filipino girl. I've dated many different races, and I mean different cultures or whatever. But some of the people that I definitely will swipe the F left on are people who have white people with their basically pictures of when they went to my continent, Africa, and they took the same picture with some kids. I'm just like I'm like F you, right? So when you coming to the table, I think like with the whole kind of thing, like kind of like I want to elevate their voices, is like it has to be from a place where you're speaking to a human injustice, not kind of like oh, poor them or whatever. And so what I think we're saying very early on in the webinar, it's putting skin in the game. It's like kind of like if you're gonna, like, when the Allies came to help during the war, it wasn't like lip service. They like were there next to other soldiers dying, losing their legs, under fire. They were all in. And I think if true allyship, that's what it is. You're all in. You're asking them like, what's the battle plan? It's like, and like how many people are going to lose? It's like it's the whole shebang. And I think like if you go all in that way, in the same way that like the Allies did, then yeah, it's like then you're there. Then you truly have something to share, right? It's like kind of like the story that I shared with Peter about Peter. I tagged him and he called me after that. I tagged in a story very early on in this whole activism thing. I tagged him. He called me afterwards. Like, thank you for what you said. And it's like it's the truth. It's like and like me and Peter, like we can go like sometimes like 11 months without ever talking. Like and we're the best of friends. And like yeah, I love him to death. Like I hug him all the time. He doesn't like to be hugged. I kiss him on the cheek all the time. He hates that as well. But like it's like when I love people, I love people. So I mean, I think like if you're gonna get into battle with like with us, it's like be all in. Just be all in, and then we'll have a great story of victory to tell when you come out the other end.
Oh. Awesome. So Christina is still with us. Julia is still with us. Is there anyone else still with us? I just want to make sure that I'm acknowledging everyone.
If you got a question, you can ask it. I shared earlier on the link to the anti-racist lexicon. If you didn't get it, I can share it again. Oh yes, I'm just going to give you a little snippet on what our next webinar is going to be on. But I'll be posting a kind of like a poll so you guys can choose. But something that's very, very dear to my heart, and the reason why Oprah Winfrey is actually buying up billboards to basically like shout it out on the rooftops, is our next topic is going to be on why Black women or black women's lives are basically just unimportant. Why that is and how we can address that. There's that as a choice, and I think the other choice. What was the other choice? I think the other choice.
The suppression of activists on social media.
Oh, that was it. Yeah. So I mean the 10 people or so who are there. So the 10 people there who are with us still, like you can already vote if you want. So like the choices between why is it that Black women's lives matter less and their voices matter less versus I've already forgotten the second one. How do you call it? Activism being shut down on LinkedIn. So you guys can choose between those two, but I'll be sending out like an official poll. So there you go. So Julia, I'm just trying to learn how to be an ally without making it about me. So if you have any tips to that end, I would love to hear them. Otherwise, I learn from you every day on Ally. So thank you. Oh, you're super welcome, Julia. Super welcome. No, I really think that's it, because like one of the things I said to this lady who came to me is like, it's literally, okay, this is a crazy idea that I had, right? So if you know the data, right, this is something I will challenge anybody or everybody who's here, or especially our white allies who are here, to do. So this is a crazy idea that I had. So we know that like the average white household earns like almost like 10 times or 4 times more than Muslim. I think there's another resource I shared where you can get that data. So my idea is the following. If you live in a neighborhood that is purely white, where you don't have a Black neighbor, right, but you have a Black friend, and you get together with all your neighbors with this is a crazy idea, but with your disposable income, and you say there's a house for sale in our neighborhood, and you buy that house for that Black friend of yours, and you get your Black friend to move into your neighborhood. That is a way, and it sounds crazy, but because it's a crazy idea, but because at the end of the day, that Black family, it's the same way that, like I told you, my best friend, he paid my rent for 2 years until for 2 whole years until I was able to pay him, like I think 4 years later, right? It's like do something crazy like that. It's like, because the chances are the neighborhood that you're in, you're never gonna have a Black friend. You're never gonna have a Black family, right? It's like so mix it up. I know that things in the States are super segregated, but like that's one thing you could do. It's like, or if you can't, buy them a house, it's like, well, maybe you can get them in and have their rent paid for an entire year, right? You could use a network and say, this person's super qualified, I'm going to get them a job, and so on and so forth. But something radical where you literally are able, where you're changing somebody's life, not for charity, but for parity, right? Not for charity, but for parity. And I
love that.
If you can do that, that's life changing. That will get into the news. That will get shared all over social media, and then other people will start having that idea. And if it's not and that's for any community. So like it's not like just like so that we mix it up, so that we stop this kind of segregation where Asian people are hanging out together, Black people are hanging out together, white people are hanging out together. This seems like it's like. We have to stop that. We have to mix up the neighborhoods, right? And I think for me, like when we're trying to talk about this whole thing of being good, it's like being good is like being in love, right? Like people like fall in love and then they forget it's an active verb. It's something you have to do, that you have to keep on doing. So it's not like, oh, I'm a good person. It's like, well, how are you being good? How are you being? Where's the evidence? Where are the receipts? So like, I mean, and that's the thing. I think like if you can deliver on those receipts, and be good in tangible ways that are visible and changing people's lives, then that's one way I could kind of answer the whole thing about like trying to be an ally. It's like I'm like how can you band together with people who think like you and change a Black person's life? Literally.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that was so good, and I love the quote that you said. I might have to steal that, I don't know, but not for charity, but for parity, because there is somebody in the comments that yes, because when you look at the economic situation that Black people are in, when you look at the social situation that we are in, it is not because of any fault of our own. I want to say that, and I want to make it very clear also that when you look at the higher socioeconomic status that white people are in, that is the direct result. Literally, you can trace it back to slavery in this country, right? So for years and years and years, hundreds of years, you had Black people that were not allowed to educate themselves. You had Black people that, can you hear me, Merv? Because it sounds like I'm going in and out. Okay, perfect. We, of course, didn't hold jobs. We were free labor, right? So we were literally slaving without money, without pay, and we were treated as property. And so for hundreds of years, white America has had this huge head start. And that's what I want people to understand. Even if you have come to America after slavery and you're like, well, my parents didn't own slaves. Like, I'm from Italy, I'm from Greece, I'm from this and that. Guess what? You benefit from the disparities that have been created in the system, in the American system, because you have white skin and you're able to identify that way. Did you know that back during that time when they were creating what is now called the United States or America, people had to petition to be white? To and I hope we can dig into this a little further next time. I don't have a whole bunch of the background on it, but the Irish petition, they went to whatever the government was at that time, and they wanted to be recognized as white so that they could have the advantages of being white. I know the Chinese have petitioned to be white. They turned them away and they said, no, we're not going to consider you a part of the white race, the white class. And so literally there is this, you have these slave owners that have been making money and building wealth, right, off of the free labor, off of the back of Black people, my ancestors, and it's trickled down, right? Wealth just doesn't disappear. So even with that, I also want you to know a lot of times that these slave owners, they would lend out, oh my gosh, Merv, you may be able to speak to this more, but they would actually, I think the banks would kind of give them money, and like it was like a trade between slaves and I don't know. I have to look that back up. But anyway, the homesteaders and people that came afterwards, even after slavery was abolished, they were able to gain land. Like America gave them land, pretty much for like nothing, for like free, right? And it was supposedly, they also said that they were going to give Black people land as well. That's where you hear the term from, like 40 acres and a mule, through Sherman General Order, I think it's number 51, if I'm not mistaken. But then the next president that came along, they totally erased it and said, no, we're not doing this. We're not giving Black people nothing. So they were giving out free land to white people, to white Italians, to white Greeks, to white whatever, right? And these people were able to come to America because of the disdain that people had for Black people, because of the lack of access that they gave Black people, because of the lack of resources that they were giving them. Those resources were disproportionately funneled to white communities. So you have all this wealth, not because you've worked harder for it, not because there's something apparently just like makes you more intelligent that you're able to accumulate it. No, the government literally gave out millions, like so much money, please look it up, and land to these white farmers, and I forgot what year it was, for them to be able to build, to sustain themselves and, and take care of their families. And then what happens to wealth? Land is primarily a source of wealth, right? Everyone that knows they want to own a piece of real estate, especially if, I want to own a piece of real estate in New York. And it kind of just like trickles down to, your children and your children and your children's children and your children's children. So imagine going back to my ancestors that weren't able to work, right? They and when they did work, they were being paid like absolutely nothing, and they were forced to accept it. And they were also kept in this very perpetual cycle of poverty because of things like redlining, where the banks would refuse to give mortgages to certain areas where there were like predominantly Black people, right? So and some of the neighborhoods still today, they are they're very poor because of it still. They haven't been able to recover. And then you'll have things like the Tulsa riots, right? So there was like Black Wall Street. There was a point in time where in America, sorry, Murder.
No, I know.
So long
but I think,
so long with it.
because I think those. I mean, like I think like because like we obviously like going back in history, we can go back. All those things are clearly apparent, right? That like our current situation is a product.
I don't think it's apparent because a lot of people say no. I want to say that.
No. It's not that I disagree.
Because there's a lot of white people that feel like I don't want to give money because
that's the reason.
It goes into this kind of narrative, right? Like I'd rather help them get a job. Like I'd rather, okay.
Exactly. Because that's what Julie is saying. She goes. She says like in Julie. She goes, how do you do something like that without being this white person swooping in to save a Black person? You see, and that's the thing. And that's the thing. It's not a question. That's the reason why I said the thing for parity and not for charity. So the way that you do it is literally, like I said, when you have something to lose, it's like how. Try and think of it. Even the reason why I give that idea is like I've barely ever seen a situation, and apart from the one that I lived through myself, where literally like Peter, like in those 2 years, he literally just gave his money away. He had no guarantee that I was going to get a job and I'd get back on my own 2 feet. None, right? So he just did it because I was his friend. So had he lost his money, maybe I could have turned into drugs. I could have been like a hopeless person. Never seen his money, but like he was prepared to do what he needed to do to try and help me out. And I think it's like, and it's a question of like, it's just giving back, to be quite frank. It's like, because like when I say I think to the people who are joining our webinars, I think like the white people joining our webinars, I think they are aware. Like, but the wider community isn't aware. The people who are not on this webinar, who like, the people who we showed the examples, right? Calling you biatch and whatever. They're the people who are in total denial, right?
Right.
Did you see the guy? Did you see that thing with the guy? Conversations with a Black man when he goes in denial. Didn't even know I was lying. Right? Denial. D didn't even N no I didn't even know I was lying. I am lying. That's it. Didn't even know I'm lying. Right. And I think like, and that's the thing, is like it's the people who are in denial that we have to kind of convince. And to answer your question, Julie, I think like you can, if it's when you, like I said, that's the reason why it's probably best to do that with a Black friend, somebody that you know,
right.
somebody that you get to know, somebody that's been in your life like for ages, and for whom, and I'm not saying for whom you didn't do anything, but for whom maybe like, because for me it's like kind of like okay. And the reason why I gave that example, I'm from Sierra Leone, West Africa. One of the things that really disturbs me, if you're still with us, Julie, one of the things that really disturbs me, give us a yes. I don't know if I'm talking about the people who are there. One of the things that disturbs me when I go back home to Sierra Leone is when I see people in Sierra Leone, like Black people in Sierra Leone, who go back with their money, right? They get themselves a house, and they're riding out in Benzes and whatever, and like the roads aren't practical in Sierra Leone. It's like they have all this wealth, and they just live around people with no money, and they're okay with it. And I'm just like, that's messed up. Like, if I'm gonna go back to Sierra Leone, I'm gonna go back and not try and live a lavish life. I'm gonna go back and just try and give to my community and live humbly. And so the idea of like giving back for me is more a question like that you actually do lose something. You lose a bit, right? But for somebody else to gain. And then you might both have less. You might both have less, but you've done something that's fundamentally good and is actually and is tangible and it's visible, and your life is enriched for it, and the other person is too. So I think that's kind of like how you would do it. And to be quite frank, is like, when you say how do you do that without being this white person, I'm saying that's how other people are going to see it, right? If we stopped, like if women didn't march to get the vote because they at some point they're like, oh my gosh, somebody's gonna say something, we never would have gotten there. If they did that for civil rights, we never would be here.
Yep.
You know, if they did that for like, you know, LGBTQ marriage, we wouldn't be here.
Yep.
So at a certain point, Julia, you just have to not give a fuck. And
right, and you have to understand.
And when you find your tribe of other people who don't give a fuck, you make that thing happen.
Right, and then you also have to understand. You also have to understand the history. I feel like maybe if you understand the history behind what disparity it is that you're seeking to help address, that makes it come from a genuine place.
Exactly.
Because white saviorism is right. It's more about, well, oh my gosh, look at these poor blacks. They have, you know, they're just so destitute. They don't have anything, and so like I have to come in and save them, right? Like that's a certain mentality. They already think a certain way about us, based on what they've been fed, which are lies, false narratives. And so that's white saviorism. On the other end of it, people like you who understand why the situation has been what it is for the Black community because of certain policies, because of white supremacy, because of slavery, and you're seeking to remedy that with the privilege and the resources that you have, that's a whole different thing. That's you being a complete all-in ally. That's amazing, you know, like, so it really comes from your mindset, and you know what your mindset is, and the person that you're helping knows what your mindset is. And so anybody else that has anything to say, like Mervin said, they can just
exactly. And just to add upon that, I think what's really interesting with all the backstory that Aisha gave, is, for example, like basically, like let's say, like, you know, like the person that you're going to do it for is somebody actually who maybe works in the same company as you, who has maybe a similar position as you, right? And basically, you know, you either went to schools with, or you've known for ages, and they just don't seem to be able to keep getting up, let's say, the social ladder, as it were. And basically what you can do, like, it's like have the entire backstory. So like, this person has done this, this person has done that, this person has this qualification. I know white people who don't have that qualification, who live in XYZ house, who live da 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 da. And so it's like I said, it's not charity, it's parity. It's like basically like, you know, like, this person has been qualified for this long. They have, like, you know, like, for example, okay, just give you this simple stereotype. Like, you know, I was like, growing up, I was just like a pretty boy, and I was like, I'm like, you know, we used to work out, I had my biceps and my six pack and everything. And like, and people, like, when I tell them I got 2 kids, and I used to be a singer and MC, like, you got 2 kids? Like, yeah, and they're from the same mom, right? So people are always gonna think stuff about you, right? But if you can give them the backstory, if you can give them the evidence and say, like, well, you know, I am not like this, or this isn't what you think it is because XYZ, they gotta shut up. They have, like, you can't argue with facts. Like, you know, I mean, Donald Trump does, but like, you know, like every other normal person doesn't, right? So yeah. So I mean, that's kind of like,
yes, Future's back. Yay! Woo!
Take yourself off mute, girlfriend. You're on mute.
Mommyhood called. I had to go pick up my kids.
Aww. So Julia was just wondering how to be an ally without making it about her. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that as well.
Okay. How about not making it about charity? It's Jillian.
Julia. Is there a race?
No. It's because like I basically came up with this idea of saying, like, an idea that this has been trotting around in my head for ages, and basically the idea was like, kind of like, because in the United States, you guys have like white neighborhoods and black neighborhoods, and I was like, look, if you're living in a white neighborhood and there's a house up for sale, and we know what the financial disparity between blacks and whites is, and you have a group of friends, and you have a black friend who has the same qualifications, you work same company, but you're known for like 10, 20 years, but that person is basically never been able to even afford a house in your neighborhood. You know what the reason that is? If you have like a group of like 10 friends and you guys have disposable income, you literally just go and buy the house of that person and have them move into your neighborhood. So we start mixing up neighborhoods. And I said it's not charity, it's parity. It's like, parity, not charity. And basically because what Aisha brought up is like, well, because we know the historical history, the historical factors behind that have led to that person or that race or those Latinos or whatever, or that disabled person or whatever. It's like you know what the reasons are behind that. And like I don't know early if you're with us at the time, Julie, but I was saying that one of the things that I posted it just the other day. Do you know that like I don't know. I mean, if you guys are watching in the chat, if you know who this person is, please put their name in it. And if you guys know what I'm gonna say, how to go future, and I should say it as well. I have no idea who the most influential person of a small stature is on LinkedIn. I have no idea who the most influential person with a in between brackets disability is on LinkedIn. I have no idea who the most influential transgender person is on LinkedIn. I have you know, it's like all these people that exist, they exist, they are part of our world, they all breathe our air, right? You know, like same air that we all breathe. We have no idea who they are. And so like once we understand we have these blind spots, our job as dominant people who only have been pushing our narrative or been very comfortable pushing the narrative of being ableist, we can speak, we can hear, right? One of the things that I kick myself about is like that all this isn't captioned, right? So like it's one of the things that's really driving me. Like now I want to caption all my stuff, I want to have audio. If anybody knows somebody who does sign language, we'd love to have somebody do sign language on all our webinars. We have no money. I'm doing this for free, but I want to be 100% inclusive. And so it's those blind spots. It's like basically spending your time thinking about the people that you never think about. Like our world, we are as a people, we are narrow sighted. We think our existence is the existence of everybody else. And so for me, it's like the best advice I can give to people: stop thinking that people live like you. There are tons of people who do not live like us. So the simple fact that we can hear, speak, and we both have a pair of hands and both legs is like, and also like there are people who stop living like us. There are people who go off to war and they come back with one leg and they come back with no arms. And they're still, whoever, if that person's name was Alex when they left, their name is still Alex when they come back, right? So they haven't changed, but aspects of their life has changed. It like means like, well, because we live in an ableist world, that basically does everybody else is like it's an afterthought, right? So us as the majority, we have to start thinking of those people like every single day. How can I include them? How can I know them? How can they be in my life, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I love that. I just want to say something about that. It's definitely just having genuine relationships with people. That's what it comes down to, because then once you do that, you're able to understand, okay, these are some of the things that, you know, that they experience on a day-to-day basis. And it's really eye-opening.
Mervin, people are asking, I know, in comments on LinkedIn, if this is going to be recorded, because I think some people maybe missed it or they're hearing about it.
Yes, it's recorded. It's recorded. I'm going to download it. I'm going to upload it to my YouTube channel. There'll be a link to it and everything. You guys know. Y'all know. Y'all know.
I'm just checking the YouTube chat. Not the
maybe they don't know. Some of them don't know. Then they don't know.
No, it will be. It will be.
So did we get through all the questions or no?
So we actually didn't really go through the questions. We just asked the people that were still on if they have questions, because we want to just, you know,
honor them.
Yeah,
I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, voila. I'm gonna take a break, and I'm gonna let you guys continue. So I think I can remove myself, and let the lady speak.
Okay. Well, I have to hop off in like 2 to 3 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes. Okay. Again, so
let's do one more question.
Yeah, one more quick one. Anyone has somebody said good morning from Sydney. Hi.
Oh, Martin.
Amazing. So before
we've seriously gone over, Martin. So if somebody has the last question, check it in the chat and LinkedIn. I mean, sorry, in YouTube. Oh yeah, and also I'm gonna start a petition because LinkedIn, because I'm very vocal, and I'm also it's not that I'm anti-male. I'm just very, very pro-female, and they don't like that. So I want to start a petition to get you guys to help me get my LinkedIn Live license. So I'll be putting that out there. Yes. So if somebody has a last question, come on, guys. Last question.
Yeah, ask us anything. We're after hours. We're just, this isn't part of the program. We're just land it off. Just,
I'm going to have to watch it back to see the questions that you guys answered.
It's probably like one or two, I think. Yeah.
Right?
I think what I find really interesting with the questions, like especially like the one that Julia asked, I think it's when people ask questions, you get inspired. So like, I mean, like the whole thing, like, you know, parity, not charity. I've never said that before until the question came up. So I think that's what's really, really cool. Like when we engage in these conversations, like people really just like inspire you just out of their own curiosity of how they want to do good. Right. So like it helps us ideate and come up with ideas. So thank you guys. Anyway, for like, oh my God, how should I respond to criticizing my criticizing your coffee?
It depends. If he's saying that he doesn't want it black, then I mean,
What's the question?
And we can help you respond in a couple ways. If he needs to add some cream, like, because he's uncomfortable.
Oh my, yeah, hold on. You just don't even say you went to the cream part, and let's even go there. Like that's I have a twisted mind, so I was like, sorry. Anyway, this is getting out of hand.
Yeah, it is late.
It's late in the UK, so like it's early in the morning in Spain, but it's late in the UK. So anyway, so I mean, I think
he's married to an African man. He said.
I know. He's from West Africa.
Oh, he's a friend of yours?
Yeah, Martin Stark.
Oh, okay, awesome.
So I mean, I think we're going to call it a day. But I'll put the link up to this video so you guys can watch it again and ask any questions in the comments on LinkedIn that we didn't answer, and I'll also be putting out a little poll for you guys to decide which webinar we should be doing next. And also, also urging you guys to really get on LinkedIn's ass to give me my LinkedIn Live license so that I can produce these. And I don't want to be, I can be in the background and like basically produce awesome, really nice, smooth shows because it's like, this wasn't planned at all.
No, it wasn't.
I really wasn't trying to say, oh goodness and gracious. So like, yes, please. I do my best work, like, in the background. Like, let me just like showcase, like, a little bit. Let me show off a little bit. And like, so basically, like, I do stuff like this. You see? And then when you can just go like to Future King's question, bam, and like, oh, I need to go back. Whoa.
Yeah,
I want a question to the panel. And so the ladies will just give me the direction, say, Mervyn, could we have a question from the panel? And I just go, yes, ladies. I click, oh my gosh, there we are. Question 19, Mervyn. Question 19, please. And I'm like, yes, ladies. Question 19. All right? This is where I am at my best. Okay? It's like I do have some ideas and stuff, blah blah, but like I just want to serve, how do you call it, the voices of the women on LinkedIn, because they're the ones that we don't hear enough from. They're the ones that are going to take us where we need to be. So please, please, please get LinkedIn to give me my LinkedIn Live license.
How are they going to do that?
I'm gonna write a petition. I'm gonna write a petition, and I want you people to help me. Okay, I need your help. I need your help. I am dying here. I am dying. You didn't like to do actions, did you? You didn't like to be. I could be like a boss of the mafia, right? You had no idea, did you? So that's either really bad action or really good action. I have no idea.
It's not too bad. It's not too bad, Mervyn. I could give you schooling on that.
Oh,
not too bad, right? Even though I'm in the UK, I grew up watching a lot of gangster movies. A lot of them. So yes, I'd rather use my skills otherwise, guys. So we're gonna call it a day. And
hold on. What's our last words? Do we have any last words before we sign off? And then, you know what I mean? Say goodbye to everybody. What's our final last words?
Yeah, let me go first because I literally I have a meeting in literally 60 seconds.
Okay.
My last words are no, okay, wait, no. My last words are that I honestly, I want us to all come from a space of love. Like I want us to be able to look at each other, right, and see each other as like as family, as brothers and sisters, as like connected. We're all humans on this planet. We're living together. We all want the same things at the end of the day. To love, to be loved, to take care of our family, you know, to be with our friends. And so this isn't a movement that is, I would say, trying to take anything from anybody. Like Mervin said, it's a movement of trying to get us all on the same level playing field, right? So that we can be in harmony with one another. And that's what I want people to understand, is that I love you. I hope that you love me back, right? And love is an action word. And so there's things that come with that. And so, yeah, those are my last words. And everything that I do, I always try to say it in love. I always have the best intentions. You know, even if I may sound like I come across harsh, it's just because, you know, sometimes we need a jolt. We need things to wake us up. Like if you have kids, future, you know, sometimes you're not just gonna be like, you know,
exactly.
Go to bed. Like I said, this is the 50th time I said it, but I'm still gonna say go to bed. So, get in the bed now. You know. So those are my last words. I'm hopping off because I'm late. A minute late to.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye. Love you. Okay, Marvin, do you want to go?
Yeah, my parting words are just do good, be good, and think and focus on not so much your intent, but the specific outcome that you want. It's like, you know, if your outcome is a better world, then every single action that you're going to partake in has to match that. And I think if you think of the specific and ultimate outcome that you want, then your all your actions, thoughts are gonna just align with it. And so I think, you know, that's kind of like, you know, that's kind of, when I say kind of how I've kind of found my voice. It's like, I'm like, yeah, like just this webinar is like, it's been hours and hours and hours of work. But once I was in, I was like, okay, I'm doing it. You know, like, you know, it's like, yeah, it's just been, and I really, really enjoyed it. Even though I wasn't supposed to be on, I really, really enjoyed it. And it's given me the confidence to know that, okay, I can do some more stuff. So just guys, it's just like, you know, just, yeah, focus on your outcome, focus on the impact that you want to create in somebody's life, and just go for it, live it.
Okay. I guess I have several parting words. The first thing I want to say to all those who are on this journey with us, whether you are Black, people of color, or whether you are white, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I see you, we hear you, we value you, and we're on this journey with you. That's first. The other thing that I would tell people is just be careful of your mind, because I am adamant about saying we are on this mental marathon. And if your mind is negative, it's going to be impossible then to live a positive life. And that's what we want. We just want positivity, and we're searching and seeking and asking, and in some regards begging, right? For my children, for their grandchildren, that we just want to be safe. We want to psychologically and physically safe in the world. We want to be in a world that we're able to be happy and be authentic. And I think if people sit with themselves and rally together, that we could get there. And I would always, like I sign off everywhere, is stay healthy, be mindful, and stay positive, because we are in the middle of a mental marathon, but we can do this.
Awesome. Okay, guys, so that's going to be us. And the one thing that I forgot, you never realized, I forgot like a last slide saying thank you. And so you guys, I forgot the thank you slide. Anyway, so I don't have that thank you slide, but that's a good thing I remembered it right now, so I'll have it next time. So we see you guys on LinkedIn, and thank you very, very, very much for your time. Take care, guys. Be good.
Bye. Bye.